welcome.
I might make a motion, we open the meeting.
Do I read this before or after?
Either way.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Being a hybrid meeting, we will take a roll call vote. John Linehan?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
Rodney?
Yes.
Unme?
Yes. Yes. Oh.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so the meeting is open. Meeting will be conducted live and by remote participation pursuant to the executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law signed by Governor Baker, taken effect March 12, 2020, and subsequently extended through March 31st, 2025 under Governor hearing.
Coming up.
It's coming up, and hopefully they'll extend it, because I think it's been a great thing to be able to do both.
Most people.
Obviously, we've got half and half here tonight. Anyway, to join the meeting online, you can go to meet.google.com/NRO-MHON-PPZ. To join the meeting by phone, call 484-756-1140. The PIN is 471-781-008.
I have a question. How would anybody hear that if they weren't already in the meeting?
You know, I think of that every time I hear someone do it, and yet I still did do it, but I will say it's posted on the agenda that way, so anyone who saw the agenda could have gotten that information, but I guess if someone was on the phone and wanted to join online, it's good to hear, and vice versa, or whatever. In practice to read it, so we're in order. First up on our agenda tonight is an update on the Hebrew Senior Life, and Deb Morse from Hebrew Senior Life is on the phone. And welcome, Deb, and we all look forward to hearing an update. What's going on? What's happened in the last 2 months? I know you've been busy.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So since the town meeting, where the town sort of very graciously supported the allocation of very generous CPC allocation, we then received the 40B comprehensive permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then very quickly submitted what's called a pre-application for the 96-unit all-affordable senior housing community to the state's Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And they typically get inundated with applications, and it's somewhat of a milestone to then be invited to submit a full application. And we found out about 2 weeks ago that we were in fact invited to submit a full application, which is great just because it's an important milestone, but also given the size of the project, which is a large project, and the amount of money we're asking for from the state, it felt a little suspenseful to us, but we did get invited with a strong endorsement. And so right now, we are just working feverishly on this really, really complicated and challenging application that we will be submitting to the state next month. It's due on February 27th. We will, Barry, want to include in that a copy of the fully signed CPC grant agreement if possible.
Okay.
And we're also working with Select Board Chair Katie to get a letter of support from him as well, along with the other elected officials that represent the town of Stoughton. So, yeah, tons of things are going on, and we're really excited, and we hope to make a very competitive submission in February, and then we would probably find out in late spring, maybe June, about whether or not the project was awarded the funds that we asked for. So if so, like a year from now, we would be getting ready to start construction.
And if not,
Sorry, Barry?
I said if not, it's not approved by.
Oh, if not, well, if it's not approved, either the state will say, we're gonna kind of maybe let you submit again this summer. I'm not really sure what the outcome will be. I doubt they'll make us wait a whole another year, because with site control that we have, zoning approval, and an allocation of funds from the town, I think they're gonna try and find some way to get this project to move forward.
And so Deb, you said, you've got to submit, and so you really need a deadline on the signed application, or the signed grant agreement is what date?
You know, I mean, ideally, it would be great if we could have it at the end of this month, just so we can start assembling
Okay.
things.
I'm pretty sure we will have it by then, but I wanted to know a date when I needed to start getting nervous, and if necessary, come in and talk to Mr. Calder and get somebody to do it, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Just, you know, Barry can just keep me posted, and then if we need to do a workaround, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable we'll have it by then.
Okay.
If you needed it next week, that might be an issue, but I actually expect maybe the end of next week, hopefully, but I'm not in control of the situation, so it's hard to say. And construction loan closing, which is the key date for us, you anticipate to be when?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
When do you anticipate the construction loan to close?
So my hope is that if we get funded, it would be, like in March of 2026. And that's when we would start construction.
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
Deb, you mentioned, the word competitive submission. For myself and others who may not know what that means, could you describe what that entails? I mean,
Yes,
who are you
so
competing-
the
who are you
state-
competing with?
Sorry, I didn't get the last
I
part.
said, who are you competing with?
Oh, okay, so there are not enough state resources to go around to all the different, developers working on projects. So, these numbers are probably not right, but they probably get 70 applications, whittle it down to maybe 50 or so, and, you know, don't quote me on these numbers. And then really just about 20 to 23 get funded every year. So I think I mentioned this at earlier CPC meetings, you know, we've had this incredible track record of all of our projects getting funded the first time we go in. And we intend to keep that record going here in Stoughton. But, you know, they're gonna be looking at our project against lots of other projects, and they're gonna have, some are not gonna make it.
Thank you.
We're all pulling for you, I think. So,
Oh, thank you so much.
Any other questions from members of the board? Members of the committee, the board, whatever?
Other than the completed grant agreement, is there anything else we can do for you?
No, I mean, Barry, if you want, I can forward you the email we sent to Chairman Casey and a lot of town staff, to try and get this letter from the select board chair.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I'll send you that, but other than that, I think we're in great shape. Thank you.
Okay, that's good to hear. We're glad you're making that progress, and
And we'll keep you posted.
that's all we can ask for. And if you do need anything, obviously you know where to get us.
Yeah, it's nice, and it's really nice to reconnect with all of you. It's been a while, so thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in, and we'll be seeing you again periodically, because there are
Oh,
periodic updates.
Yep,
Let me think this through. No, it's, at some point you will have a lender, what's it called?
advisor.
Lender advisor, right.
Yeah, that's when construction gets started, yeah.
That's after the construction loans, or around the same time?
Yeah, that's when that gets started, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So one last question, Deb, when do you think it'd be appropriate for another update for the committee? I mean, I don't wanna make you come in 3 months, it'd be really,
right, I mean, honestly, probably this summer after we hear back from the state.
Okay, so we'll target maybe July.
Yeah, that would be probably perfect.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions, any other concerns? Thank you, Deb.
Thank you and stay warm.
Oh, yeah.
You too.
Yeah, okay, bye.
Okay. Next up on the agenda is an update on Cape and Reynolds from Rich Terry. Barry,
Yes.
do you wanna put on the, shared drive?
Yeah, let me see, I created a Google Drive, for, documents and other things, I'll bring it up.
There's a reason.
Give me a moment, because I have to get to it, so it's gonna take a few.
Okay, well, Rich, why don't you start giving us the update?
Yesterday, I met with the general contractor, Dandel Construction, the assistant town engineer, Craig Rochette, and the project engineer, Nick. We did a walkthrough and basically a punch list. Everything is done except for things which are frozen. I'll start with the renovated wall on Pine Street, that reconstructed wall. It came out much better than anyone anticipated in terms of line of sight. And the only thing they couldn't do was hydro seed it because the grounds were frozen. It just literally finished, I think, December 29th. And so that will be done in the earliest time in the spring, late March probably. So there's going to be a little bit of holdback on funds from procuring for that purpose. There's also all the silk socks, erosion socks.
Yeah.
They are frozen in the ground. Jim Conlon has given permission to remove them. They'll remove them as we can do that. We had a couple of little things that had to be fixed at the dog park. One was on the fence facing the community garden. They used a wooden fence facade instead of just chain link for aesthetic purposes. And it's pressure treated, the new type. And one of the boards has a big curve in it, so that's going to be replaced when they can get to that. It's not functional or structural, it's just cosmetic. And the all the appliances, benches, and picnic tables, and dog and exercise equipment has been installed on the dog park. Additionally, one of the platforms that they built to protect trees and also provide space for the dogs and dog owners to sit. The space around one of the trees was so large, a medium-sized dog got stuck in there, and we got word of it. The contractor took it upon themselves and closed it in a little bit so that even a little dog can't get in there. This was the large dog park side.
I'm ready to put up some pictures.
Yeah.
I think that would help a lot, because we're gonna be able to look
I've
at
been up there a couple times. I don't know if I call it medium size, it's 75-pound Labrador Retriever.
That's a good-sized dog,
Got down under your deck.
so that won't happen
And
anymore.
getting down was pretty easy because he's got all the momentum. Get it back up. He got up. I called him and he kind of poked his head up.
That was your dog. Was your dog?
Yeah, there was one of the landscaping guys was there at the time. So if that's how you heard it, was my dog. Yeah.
Okay. Anyhow, the contract.
And here's the
Yes. That's what it used to look like.
now I think I took that picture.
Yes, it is.
A week ago.
Actually, if you look at it from a 90 degrees off,
Yeah.
there's two trees going like this. And they closed it down so it's a couple of inches away. As the tree grows in girth, we can
Oh, yeah.
adjust it.
That's, I figured.
And that was the
Yeah.
whole concept from the get-go.
So you're putting in boards that can do.
When did they do that? Because this is just from this past weekend.
It was done as of yesterday.
Okay. So it's probably earlier this week.
So, and the whole design was to allow the tree to grow and we'll simply remove the boards as necessary. Yes, you can see one of the benches here. They're
Yeah, no,
colorful.
bench, and there's a picnic table behind it, which
Right.
is harder to see.
And there's others around the small dog park as well.
Well, we got a series, I took a series
Oh,
of
great.
grapes here that I figured would help. This is a view of the large dog park off to the right. You can see the small dog park on the other side of the fence.
One of the gates, for maintenance purposes, on the large dog side, didn't have a receiver for the pole at Houston Stationary. It was frozen yesterday, so that will be taken care of. In the meantime, we'll chain link, I'll buy a chain and lock it up so the dogs can't get out inadvertently. The gate between the large dog park and the small one functions properly, but we're gonna put a chain link,
It's a padlock.
padlock in
Yeah.
as well, just so that people can't just keep moving back and forth. Other than that, they did a good job. We did ask them to consider on the pathways where they bring the turf down, there's a little bit of a divot, and it's a possible to twist an ankle on it. And they agreed that they will come back in spring and fix that. And it's a slip and fall kind of thing. It looks, you wouldn't even notice, but I stepped in it. I stepped in it.
Someone
And I'll
else
say
is.
that, somebody who's a little older, and may not be as agile, could be a problem. And so, all these, little things that we came up with, which are minimal, was noted by both, Craig and Nick. And, Derek Dandell, who represents his father's business, has been extraordinarily, cooperative. And, I don't have a photograph of the, do you have a photograph of the,
There's a
retaining
couple.
wall?
No, I did not take one, but it looked good. I just kind of noticed it driving by, and I said, "Wow, that looks pretty good."
Yeah, they tiered it 2 levels, and if you start at the entrance to the rear of the house and they move towards Prospect Street, Pleasant Street, it fades away, it ends at that monument stone that was dedicated some years ago. It looks like it was designed that way.
Yeah.
Turns out they have one guy that works in their construction company who likes those kinds of stone wall puzzles. And they said, we had plenty of stones. They actually had dumped some down at, Mead Meadows, that depot down there. They had so many stones, and they didn't use any mortar. Also, the stone walls that were rebuilt, they are fully drained so that water can't back up on the other level. So the only thing we have to do is hide the seed. And the grass that's there now looks like it's turf, not seeded. It looks like actually laid in turf. Really, it's that thick and that uniform. It was, even yesterday, in the bitter cold. So overall, the park is ready to open. The only thing that isn't functional, obviously, is the water distribution system. In the unleashing area, there's a water fountain that's designed for filling a person's water bottle, as well as allowing the dog to drink it at ground level.
I think I have a picture.
Okay, good. There it is, right there. Can you zoom in on that?
Zoom in.
So you can see the dog dish, and as well as the person's filling his water container. Just to the right of the green water fountain, as you see a wooden post, that has a water spigot, but it's a sprinkler and handle, so if you want to fill a water dish, you can do that, but you have to open it to continue the water, so it's more like dog closest. And so there's one on each side, the big and the small dogs. There's also one near the gazebo for the gardeners, same design, so the water won't be wasted. And it will not allow hoses to be used for water, they're going to carry it.
Yeah.
So that's it.
This water bubble was right inside, like the holding area when you first step in.
Right.
Close the gate, and then you open the second gate to let them into the appropriate spot.
Stanton Foundation calls that the unleashing area.
Okay, unleashing area.
Let me see what else I have.
And there's a good example of that bench.
Yeah, that's the bench right there next to the bubble.
Several benches.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of areas for ADA compliant needs, inside and outside the unleashing area. Signage was working. I stopped by about 2 weeks ago. I saw someone walking their dog. So I stopped in to say hi. And it turned out we have mutual friends. And he said, am I trespassing? I said, well, it's not officially open. He said, I went to the town hall and got a license after I read the rules. And they gave me a license, even though I was coming in. They'll give you a license for your dog. And so when it snowed, I drove by, and there wasn't a square inch of both sides that hadn't been tracked on. Really? Place has been well used.
Yeah, when I was up there, I was alone.
Yeah.
Just me Hingham dog. One other time I was up there, landscaper was there, and he was great. I mean, I talked to him a few. Turns out we had common friends from Hingham,
Oh, geez.
and he saw the dog go down under the deck. As he was leaving, he said, "I'm not going anywhere until you make sure the dog can get back out." And I called the dog, and he came right back out. That was a nice touch by him.
As far as the community garden is concerned,
There's one picture,
oh, okay.
Barry, go to the picture from the,
It's
Pine Street side. This is from the back, this one. I
Yes.
think this part looks great, this gazebo is.
The bollards with the solar lights along the back parking area next to the handicap, one of them got hit and broke a shear right off. It's very light, thin aluminum. And so when Dandel was doing the wall construction, they moved 3 of those bollards on the closest side of the back of the house, back about 3 feet.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
And so that was all part of the wall rebuild.
So it's like somebody pulling over the curb and.
It's snug in there. But they all meet standard requirements of width and depth of the parking space, but it's still tight.
This picture looks like an artist's rendering, it really was.
And that grass, one of these photographs, Dave,
This weekend, I think it was up there Sunday.
yesterday, the grass looked like that. It looks like it was sod.
Yeah.
I can see. On the community garden, raised gardens, to assign people to that, we would put a metal number, 1 through 37. So Mrs. Jones assigned it lot 1, and so
Yeah, I assume that's Eric.
that way we'll keep order and peace.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and the people that I have talked to about it really like it.
Yeah, we've got a couple of a fee for the use of the garden areas because they're using water too. And based on what we find in Sharon and in East, we'll come up with a compromise. I'll work with the Director of Recreation on that. The rules of the road and that are pretty well defined for a variety of community gardens I've looked at. We'll basically use stuff that works, essentially great. The only other thing is I need to find a volunteer that can sort of coordinate with the dog park. I think Bob Maltby Tree, he's retired. His younger brother Billy, who I went to high school with, said he's doing nothing. He loves dog. Call him. So I did. He kind of gave me a go. I'm going to ask him to coordinate having the trash bags on the street on Fridays. That's when the trash is picked up in that neighborhood. Your neighborhood. And as far as the garden area goes, I met over at Jubilee, the old Lady of Rosary, is very involved with that community garden. They have raised gardens, but they're raised literally off the ground with air underneath it, which I don't think is a good idea. This is a better idea. And she's been very enthusiastic.
Is that so they can pull a wheelchair under it?
No, it's just that they designed it that way.
I have one like that at home.
To me, it's too much air going, you're going to lose your moisture. It's like pretty solid. You brought that up moons ago. So Julie White is her name, and she's been she's a teacher in Boston. She lives on Pleasant and Prospect corner. She's been saying she's very interested in it. And hopefully we'll be able to start a dog group like in Kingston. I was there about 3 months ago and at a job site. I noticed the signs of dog parks. And of course, I had dog. I got there about 3:15, and all these women were there with their dogs, and they had their little dogs in the big dog park with the big dogs. And they said, "Where's your dog?" I said, "My dog's home, but I'm here because I'm involved with the dog park." So she's, "Well, we're the 3 o'clock club. We come here every day, all these women." And one woman who's had some sort of a foot problem, who run fast, her dog likes to eat dog food. And so all these other women were making sure this dog couldn't get into that. They were chasing him down. And it was the nicest group of people. They gave me so much information. And I got a project really well designed.
I was just at the one I go to, and they had a donation, well secured donation receptacle for if we were to form Friends of the Dog Park group or something.
That's a good idea. They had that Kingston.
Did they?
Yeah. Oh, one last thing. The contractor was getting ready to install the dispensers for the bags. But they had the wrong fasteners, the fasteners had wood, these have to be on chain, so they're gonna do that either the end of this week or first of next. That's the only other thing that they have to do in terms of,
And there was two trash receptacles right near the entrance. They were behind, I was standing in front of them when I took the picture of the side.
and
I meant
all,
to get them as well.
right, all those trash receptacles had a door with a lock. I have the keys to the kingdom now. I was giving them yesterday. Also for the poop bag dispensers, I think it's 2 or 3. So I have to get my dog vaccinated. His is expired. I'm going to do that JM vaccine. And there's a veterinary, pretty good operation, and I'm going to ask for a donation. So show them a few photographs of the system.
One other thing I wanted to mention to you when I was there, to the right of where I'm standing here going up to the house and barn, there's a lot of broken plate glass on the ground.
Yes, it's behind the house,
Yeah.
the garage, and we'll get.
Yeah, that just will need to be cleaned up.
I don't know
Kids
what
are gonna wanna run up there.
There's a lot of trash there going back years.
Oh,
It was
sure.
It was the brush was so thick. We cut it down 3 times to get it back. So there's an old septic system that the town was supposed to decommission. I keep saying, this is a hazard. You can't take the cover off. The kids will crawl in the paint.
Wow.
Well, they filled it with sand or gravel, but they didn't collapse it. So this structure is still visible. And I brought it up to the engineers and I said, as soon as these guys get done, they'll go in there and put back on the collapse.
Is it a cesspool, you think?
It was an old cesspool, yes. But the property's been on town sewage for 35, 40 years.
Wow.
Okay, no, thanks, Rich, that's great.
And there is a solar powered plant in the gazebo,
Yeah.
cupola as well.
Cool.
How big is that?
16 by 16. Give you an idea, the one in Jackson Park is 20 is an octagon. The one at the Pie Park down at Central and Canton is a 12-foot 8-sided. I went and measured them, I figured someone's gonna ask me to town meeting. And they didn't. But it's a good sized structure and it's well built. It's hurricane proof, it has all the strappings to hold the rafters to the structure. And it's not finished inside, which was intended, but it's gonna be a great place to have a speaker, or I can see someone say, we'd like to have some photographs of our wedding down here. And I say that because one of the members of our friends that came around, Charlie Walsh, got married and had photographs of their entourage in the barn, but this is going back 15 years, so I'm sure it's gonna happen. We'll have to go for the kind of a permit fee.
I think it
Well, I
looks
was
great.
just thinking about a dog show. You can bring all the dogs out on leashes, you bring the contestants up and
That's perfect.
Certainly could have the kind of adopt a puppy events or adopt a dog from the
Right.
shelters. They love
Right.
doing that stuff. That would be I mean, we used to hold those at the brewery.
did you?
Oh, yeah. The one bad thing with it is everybody loves the puppies and some of the older dogs they got are almost getting ignored. You just kind of like, you feel bad for them.
The only
Yeah, no, it's,
The only downside to the community garden, Rachel Wood brought this up, she is an expert gardener, and you can tell by her fingernails. There's a little bit of shade on the far side of the gazebo that, in the summertime, there's gonna be a minimum of 6 hours of sunlight there, because I've actually tracked it, but she was not happy. And I said, well, it is what it is. We don't have the room because we have wetlands as we move to the left.
Yep.
And so we're stuck. That's about it. That's my report.
that's great.
So,
Thank you. Thank you,
The
Rich.
grand opening will be sometime later after this fall passes, but I'm gonna put the word out after I speak with engineering, who say it is open for the dog park. Because parking is now available, all the lines are painted on, so let's get it going.
That's great. This is a project that I think the town can really be proud of.
I think it is a good one, and it dovetails with what I'm next. Oh, by the way, Jerry McDonald, Chair of the Conservation, and Juan Fox, Precinct Chair of Precinct One. Juan has been busting his butt building a trail from here to Blackwell Boulevard.
2 trails.
Yeah, it's a loop, yeah. And I was up at GIS yesterday speaking with Larry about some of the things I'm doing with the Positive Watershed Association. And I noticed he had a hand-drawn map that he's gonna now create, and put it on the web for that trail system. that's down in place. And I found one really working hard one day. And deep in the woods, I followed his pink ribbons. So I find him. So that part of the project, which we had to basically shelve, because money, he's not doing it at no cost to the town.
I hear it, just pretty much done. Just has to be mapped,
Yeah.
put on the website.
Yeah, so, and Juan has been, wanting to get involved a little bit with the farm. We're gonna have to do some next spring, because one of the counties not to do it. And I did get a verbal on painting just the house, $28,000. My house has a wooden siding, I had all the trim done, it cost me $6,000 3 years ago. Painters? On this gentleman gave me the price, does a lot of work in the city of Brockton, so he knows the prevailing rate, which is required. And so it's a real number.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Any other questions from the committee? Moving on, next on the agenda, we have a full application on the Glen Echo Jetty, Eric Coleman, who I see online. Eric?
I just want to say, before Eric starts, I don't think we have enough information to put this forward before town meeting. So I would recommend that we not recommend this project at this time and leave it open for them to come back on Wednesday.
I'm okay with that. Eric, did you want to cover anything on it tonight, or do you just want to defer that and move on to your next project? You're on mute, Eric.
I'm not on mute,
I'm
but
not sure if
Can't hear you,
our
Eric.
sound is distorted.
I think we've got an answer to your question.
You're upset
He's
so
done.
much, you can't talk.
Can you hear us? We
can't hear you.
We cannot hear
It's
you.
coming through distorted, we can't really hear what you're saying. Can you call on a phone line? Okay.
Sounds like you're using a movie thing to disguise your voice. Yes. Do you need the number? Rich?
Yeah, I think we got
Is that parcel under the town's insurance now?
Yes, that was a question.
484
Twice, once in 2000.
756
Last year,
1140.
like all of our parks.
And then it's gonna ask you for a PIN.
So,
Let me know when you're ready for the PIN.
I'm concerned with the
that was a requirement that I had to fulfill for the planning board 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Good to know.
The PIN is 471. Nope, that's the number. The number is 484 756 1140.
Now you want the PIN?
The PIN is 471 781 008, and then hit the pound sign. Well, looks like you got in.
Okay, see if that works.
Okay,
Oh, we can hear you, Eric.
Great.
all right. No, I do want to go forward with this.
I'm hearing an echo on my line. It's all right, I guess. I'm gonna shut my sound off so that I won't hear myself. The plan was to have a road go down to the lake, and that's what we've got, a road going down the lake. We've got that parking area for kayaks and canoes to launch, and we're just trying to put in some kind of device or something to launch the kayaks and canoes. Am I coming through okay? No, or something.
Loud and clear.
Yes, a little bit,
Oh, okay, I got
little bit of interference. but-
It's to get a study to continue with what we were planning. And we could, if you're particularly fond of the jetty, we could expand it a little bit to include any other, study any other possibilities for launching canoes.
Eric, let me make a
kayaks.
suggestion, can you mute your computer, because you're coming through on both.
All right, let me see if I can do that.
Better.
How's that?
There you go.
Should I repeat everything?
No,
No,
Okay, so, I'm still, I think we're still going forward with this.
Well, the problem is that we have no information that was transmitted to the town for the project. So there's not a lot, you can go, you won't have any backup information that people will be able to see.
All right, then that could be on the table for, people to see in advance, and also, the town meeting members can get that online. I know it's not ideal, but that's, the way to go forward. I think my vice chairman is at the meeting as well. Dwight, I don't know if you want to comment on this.
Dwight has his hand up, Dwight, go ahead. Dwight, you're unmuted.
Oh, let me do that, I did that because I was getting feedback, hang on.
Okay, Dwight, you're unmuted now.
What's the backup information that, I mean, when I look at the application here, I just see the one for the Shea Pavilion, I can see the one for the jetty, or is it further down?
No, the jetty's a separate one.
Right, but it's on our agenda tonight?
No,
Because I think the jetty was on the agenda, is that correct, Larry?
They're both on the agenda.
they're both on the agenda, but I think what we're saying is the backup material that was due to the town in December, we didn't have anything for the jetty to give them. So it is not on their current warrant list.
You didn't have the Zenith Consulting Engineering scope and all that?
We did have that, but to be
Well,
honest, my
that's
impression was
about
that
it.
we weren't going forward. So I didn't send it in.
John Linehan?
Eric, did you get anywhere with the town of Canton in terms of support, resistance, et cetera?
I didn't quite get that. Were you asking about the ownership of the lake?
Yes.
Well, yeah, and they're standing on relative to the jetty.
Well, I think first thing would be, do they own the lake? If they own the lake, then they've got some say on it. If they don't own the lake, then I don't suppose they do, but we're certainly gonna be friendly with them.
Well, I thought
There were a lot of questions
we
at
had.
last month's meeting about whether or not we were in a position to really begin to move forward. We didn't know if we had the right to do anything in the water. And I think that's why it didn't go to the town. Right?
Jim Conlon assured us that that Stoughton owns our end and Canton has no control. At the Concom meeting, Jim Conlon said, it is in our district and we have control over it.
Okay, I mean, that was, I guess, the answer that we weren't sure of at the last meeting.
Has anybody spoken to Canton, just in case, if they have some legal framework to claim control?
Can't
Before we
claim
spend
otherwise.
money?
Yeah, as I recall, Larice brought this up and said that in the past, when it had come up within the recreation department, there was a concern with Canton. We left it at, we need to address that concern before we move forward. We need to know we don't wanna get something ready to go to town meeting and then get cut off by something that we should have known about before we went to town meeting.
Well, Jim Conlon assured us this was under the control of Stoughton Wetlands, and Stoughton had control of it, and Canton basically had nothing to do with our end of it, the way he put it.
If you go to Canton's website and call it Glen Echo, it says that Canton owns the water rights to the entire water body.
And I know that they were doing weed control in there.
At our end,
I don't know that. I
Jim,
thought it might be for the whole farm.
Jim Conlon was emphatic, and he repeated it when I pressed him on it, that it was under our control, and so that's what we got at Concom.
Well,
Still think you need to reach out to the town.
it seems like it's a phone call away.
Yeah, just, you know.
yeah, I mean,
If Canton has the water rights, they should be able to prove that.
Right.
If they don't have, if I have them prove it, then they don't really have a right to stand.
But if it's on their website, that tells you something.
Well,
it may not be right,
It may not be right, but at least
it gives us a reason to
Right.
say we should find out.
They're under the impression.
And they also seeded in the town, thought that was fine too.
Was that?
Well, the answer might be in the title search, which I've requested, but that takes some time. And that's plenty of time before the next town meeting in which it's brought up. And if we, and the answer to that would, well, if we do own it and Canton doesn't have any say on it, then it's a little easier.
Yes.
If they own the water, and they'll probably be cooperative with us, I can talk with them once we know the answer, and meet with their conservation commission, and see if we can get permission. But all that can be done between now and the annual town meeting, if need be.
It need be. I think that does need to be done. I don't recall off the top, we had a full application at the last meeting.
yes.
Were we comfortable with the budget? I mean, we didn't vote.
Well, there were a lot of unanswered questions, that was the whole,
Yeah, I mean,
including the one we're talking about now.
well, yeah, that question, but even the budget itself, the cost and everything and the time frame. I don't recall those being nailed down in that application. Which is-
I think there's a 3-page thing from Zenith Consulting Engineers that has the scope of their bid on it, or their
The quote.
I guess they call it a bid, as to what they're gonna do. And I would expand that to some extent to include other possibilities aside from the jetty. If that's, yeah, and they could give us some answers on that as well.
I don't feel like we have a good grasp on what the
Yeah,
scope of the project actually is.
we're at a point where we shouldn't be asking questions, we should have answers. And I thought that was kind of how we left it, I think that was partly why Barry was under the impression this one wasn't ready to go. At the last meeting, we literally talked about submitting the pavilion project, even though we had a lot of questions there too, but we had, I thought, better information for that overall project that we were going to work out on the next item on the agenda. But I don't think we're as comfortable with the jetty. And I'm not sure that that's changed.
I think we need to have something definitive on this before we go to town meeting and get the egg on it.
Yeah, well, and even now, we've got to go ask them if we can even put it.
Right.
Because they've compiled a warrant and backup materials, and those can change, because a lot of it is preliminary information, and they know that. But, I'm just not sure we're ready for that. Is Dwight, I see that he stepped away from the picture screen. But I'd like to hear his view on what we should do with this going forward, since he's on both committees.
Very pretty as that picture is, we should probably get rid of it.
sorry.
I'm calling, but I'm on the other line.
No, he's talking about White?
Dwight's there.
I'm talking about,
Oh, he's on the phone.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
you can go back to our package,
Yes, thank
which
you.
we're gonna need for the next thing anyway. I do love the cathedral. I think it's just that. Well, he's back, but he's on the phone. Is that phone connected to us or is he?
It's called, somebody talking, Jim Conlon.
I think it's giving you like, wait a minute kind of thing.
Is there a question for me?
Yes,
Yeah, we have a little bit of confusion here, Dwight, from where we left off in December, that I think the general consensus, at least for some of us, was that this project was not really ready to go to town meeting in May. I think Eric would still like to get there. It's not on the warrant that the town has begun to work on because we didn't feel it was ready for it. And
Yeah, well, then, so it's not gonna be on the warrant anyway, is that what we're saying? It's kind of a moot point if it's not gonna be on the warrant, rightly or wrongly, that's where we are with it, is that the bottom line here?
And it doesn't mean we shouldn't do this project, it's just questioning whether or not we're really ready to do it for the May town meeting.
If I may, yeah, you say it's not on the warrant.
I know that part of the meeting, I appreciate what you said to me, I just.
The town had a deadline to collect everything for the warrant articles in the backup.
And,
We did not submit this because we didn't feel after the last meeting that it was ready to go. We did submit the pavilion project, even though we had not formally voted to approve it, which was another issue.
I will keep trying, and I really appreciate your feedback, at least be okay, because we had a project. Thanks, man.
So you said it's not on the warrant.
As it
is that-
stands today.
Or is it just not on the backup papers?
I'm checking.
They have a list of warrant articles, and I don't believe it's on that, and then there's backup stuff for each of those articles.
I gather if we're on the warrant, if this is on the warrant, and we don't have the backup papers, we can work on that part, and then again, if it's something that can't be done, well, it can be done. I mean,
Well, the backup papers, are we talking about the application in writing, or what's?
The application, the answer to the questions that came up at the last meeting, something to show that we do in fact have the full right to move forward, because if Larice remembered there being an issue with the town of Canton, she's not the only one in town that's gonna feel that way. So we've got to have a definitive, and it may just be the fact that Jim Conlon, that is new news for us, and good news for us, but is it enough?
It's not definitive.
well, that's part of what Zenith Consulting is gonna do, the first thing, and if we don't have permission, well, if we do have permission, then it's a go forward, that's not a problem. If we don't have permission, then I can talk with the conservation, or we can talk to conservation in Canton, and make sure that it's okay, then everything's good.
And that probably should be done before we submit a CPC application.
It is not on the draft warrant, we have a
Yeah.
draft warrant as of the end of the year, and it's not on. Doesn't mean
We
it
have
can't
been
happen.
looking at it the other way as it goes in, and then if it, God forbid, it turns out that Canton, has really these rights that are urban legend as far as I'm concerned. If that is indeed the case, then we just pull the article, but to Jim Conlon was about as specific as he could be, and he's our
He's
conservation agent, and
a
he
key
was
opinion here.
But even if we don't own it, and Canton gives us permission, then we're about in the same position, we're good.
Correct.
But those are questions that could have been answered between our last meeting and tonight. So what you're saying is you'd like to get them in. We could go to the town, we can ask if they would let us put another item on the warrant and include this. I would hate to do that, only to have to pull it because it's not ready. Given that, as of tonight, I think there's still some question among ourselves as to whether it's ready to move forward.
Yeah, well, and to go along with that one way or the other, the Conservation Commission took it under advisement
which,
That was their final, as they did on the other one. They
Yeah.
took it under advisement. They didn't say yes, they didn't say no, they just didn't give us a thumbs up or thumbs down on it.
I was disappointed to read that. I was hoping we would get a more definitive statement from the Conservation Commission on both
Yeah, I
projects,
think given the dynamics of the meeting, it's like one person proposed putting, well, here's my reading of it, one person proposed waiting and seeing. I mean, there were no objections, no loud
Yeah.
objections saying, no, we can't do it. But it was just, well, we'll take this into consideration. We're not voting on it now. I mean, that's the way I read that meeting.
If I may,
Yes.
they went down there today. They went down to two places. One was Echo, and I was supposed to hear back, ask Jim Conlon to get back to me on what they saw and what they talked about, but I didn't hear anything. I just checked my email and I saw nothing coming in.
yeah, and I had asked actually Jerry McDonald to include us as part of any walkthrough they were gonna do at the site, given that we've got potentially 2 projects going on, and,
Yeah, that was this afternoon.
yeah, no, that would've worked out fine. It's,
What's done?
well, but we didn't hear from them, so we weren't part of that.
No, it makes two of us.
So it leaves us kind of still unsure, and I guess, Dwight, you're kind of key here because you're on both sides of it. Do you feel we're ready enough to ask a favor to get this added into the warrant, which they may or may not do, and move forward and be in a position to present a good case, both to Conservation Commission, because this can't go through without Conservation Commission approval?
Yeah, well, we get into the fence and angle for, there are a lot of things that come up, but the fact is, this is just a study. This is okaying a study of what to do, and a lot of questions are being asked about, well, what are you going to do? Well, this is a study to help determine what we are gonna do, what is practical, what can be done, what's the right kind of dock, et cetera. So, some of the questions being asked us are ones that the study is supposed to determine the answer to.
That's a great point.
No, I'm not satisfied. We should be out there saying, we would like to do a study and not waste our money. Are you gonna oppose us? Do you have a claim to this? That's a simple
Yeah, I'm
thing
a
to get an
little-
answer to.
Little concerned on the Conservation Commission side, because Eric's been
I'm talking about
Trying
Canton, though.
I'm sure it was
I'm
who?
talking about Canton.
Well, yeah. But even our own people have been hesitant to give us an answer. The
I
Canton piece was
understand
like
that.
news to us at the last meeting.
I mean, to me, doing the study is something that then the Conservation Commission could look at. But the more foundational piece is,
Can we do this?
can we do it, does Canton have, are they gonna stand in our way if they have control or not? Just some of those basics.
And I could take a quick phone call. I don't know when you have to reach out to the town as far as that's concerned, but you could get some updated information tomorrow, or he could get in touch with them tomorrow and get a definitive,
Keeping in mind that that's what we asked for a month ago.
I certainly understand it, but I agree with
Yeah, no.
John in the sense that, we're gonna ask for a study, and if Canton says, no, that's our property, or, we'll fight you, or whatever the case may be, you just kind
I
of
don't
get
wanna
the cart
crush
before
the
the
money.
Yeah, I don't want
Yeah,
the cart
no.
before the horse, so.
So I guess one alternative, Dwight and Eric, would be to say, can you tomorrow make that phone call to Canton, Eric, and get us a more definitive answer? And if so, we could then go to the town and ask if we can get it onto the warrant. Which I don't see that as a huge problem for the town, because
When's the
it's
warrant
still,
close?
Begin
In February.
first Tuesday in February.
but they were starting to review stuff with the Board of Selectmen this week, so that was why they wanted all that backup in December.
I'm not sure Canton is in a position to say who owns it.
But as long as there's a doubt from people here in Stoughton, I'm with John, we shouldn't spend any money on a study to find out that we can't move forward. Because that's, we
That'll
don't need
be
a
the first
consultant
thing
for
on the
that.
study, and if the study says
That's what makes this.
we can't move forward, then very little will be spent.
I'm sorry, John.
to go forth without having investigated it makes us look foolish and not
Yeah.
very cryptic.
I mean, I think that's a responsibility, Eric, on your end and the Conservation Commission's end, to have that question nailed down before we submit a CPC application to start spending money.
Well, in Jim Conlon's mind, it was nailed down, but that's, that was just his opinion, and he was definitive about that. So hypothetically, one called Canton Town Hall tomorrow, it would be like if someone called Stoughton Town Hall today and asked to speak to the foundation. God help them. I mean, one of the frustrating things on the Conservation Commission was that 2 or 3 or 4 of the members said, well, this is the first we've heard anything about this. While at the same time, their chairman, Jerry, had been to all our meetings and knew everything that was progressing, and then there was this. So how to respond to that provided, I didn't say anything, but I noticed it was kind of to my mind, odd phenomenon that was taking
Yeah.
place there.
I think we saw that here in this room at our last meeting, that there was some disagreement and a certain amount of discomfort that we don't want to push forward for something to be shut down by either the town of Canton or the Conservation Commission.
I have a comment. On one of our GIS maps, I think it's the open space map, it shows various properties, either town-owned and conservation, or private and under conservation, or owned by the town of Canton, such as the land on the corner of York and Washington Street, which goes across the street. There's a significant number of acres in that little parcel there that's owned by the town of Canton. That's the only part of our town which is shown on our map that is owned by the town of Canton. Nothing is mentioned around Glen Echo.
I don't know if it's relevant, but historically, there was quite a park at Glen Echo in which there was docks going out there swimming, and I don't believe there was a problem as to who owned what. We just were there and
That was
everybody was fine.
pre-Wetlands Protection Act.
That's true.
What?
That was prior to the creation of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Which is what
1973.
presumably gives Canton a potential say in the map.
I see, all right.
The question is, Canton believes that they were granted the water rights many years ago by the state. So if that is correct, then there should be a document which attests to that. And if Canton wants to assert their rights to the ownership of the water, including the water that's over the border in Stoughton, then they should be able to produce a document that backs that up. It's as simple as that. I know it's not simple, but that's the solution.
Eric, may I make a suggestion? If you call the town and we'll send them a letter, town of Canton, and say, this is what we're doing in regards to the launch, they will react instantly if they think they own it.
Yeah.
They will react. Look how they react.
They recommended that we get
It's still
a
got town hall.
lawyer to come up with an answer.
Who recommended
We're
that?
concerned.
Who recommended?
I might have been conservation,
We have,
probably conservation.
we know we have,
In Canton.
we know we have title to the Glen Echo land because we were all part of the long process by which we got it. So the land, we know we have title to because we were in there from the time it was purchased. I'm talking CPC now. So it's odd because all sorts of cottages at the other end of the lake, you can't. So it's not as if, they don't permit waterfront development or docks or whatever. But the level at which we're supposed to be sure that Canton doesn't have any right to it is a bit odd to me, but I fear that people would feel more relieved if somehow we could finally say, yes, Canton has no right to it. So
I think if it weren't for the fact that Louise brought this up, based on something that she had been involved with as an employee of the town and on this committee, I wouldn't have even thought of Canton having an issue with this. But once that issue came up, and this is where we were a month ago, we said we need to have an answer to that before we can move forward.
I did some research into it myself, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that Jim Conlon is on the side of wanting us to go forward,
Yes,
but
I do too.
that
I
alone
wanted to get
doesn't
it nailed
answer
down.
the question that was asked.
Yeah, I did some research on it and, and I found on Canton's website that they claim that they own the water rights to the entire pond surface. And the other thing I found is that in Canton's water resources map, it does not show their water resources extending beyond the town line, into Stoughton at Glen Echo Lake. So there is, and if you go to the town's, assessor's map, the water inside Glen Echo Lake in the town of Stoughton does not show any ownership, does not even show it as a parcel.
Yeah, I was referred to that, someone in Canton referred me to the map, was that, the GIS map, and they told me what coordinate we were in, and that was a Stoughton coordinate.
Yes, well, and Barry has just said, I mean, Canton is not, they have this general statement on water rights in Glen Echo, but every other document they have shows the line, the Canton line, Canton control, and the other side is Stoughton. And Barry saw that on at least two documents that he mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing definitive would be if Canton has water rights, that they can show a document that actually reinforces that, that claim. In other words, if you have a claim on a particular piece of property, you've got to have a deed for it. And if they either have it or they don't.
Barry, you saw something that was somewhat contradictory.
Yes, that is true. Canton has the water resources map does not show them controlling the water over the town line on Glen Echo Lake. Although another, it was in, in the text, on the Canton's water resources, which said in words that they own the water rights to the entire body of water. So yeah, those two things on Canton's website are self-contradictory, no question about it. But neither is definitive. The only thing that would be definitive, if it exists, is a deed.
Barry, did you search the Norfolk County Land Office?
No.
In terms of deeds, that's pretty, very accessible
No,
database.
I'm sure it is. I mean, I was, that's something for Eric to do.
Yes.
I agree.
That is another.
Well, I requested a title search, but nothing's happened, and I'm only a citizen. I can't ask the town lawyer to do anything.
No, but you can go, as Rich just said.
You as a committee do that?
Your Conservation Commission could go through the town to the town lawyer, town council and request that.
Right.
I don't think, I mean, given that really needs to be answered before this becomes a CPC application, I don't think that we have the responsibility to go do the title search.
No, and as Rich suggested, and I don't know if this is going to get you anywhere, it may, is to go to the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds website and do a title search. I'm not sure that will get you what you need. It may not.
Well, for the title search for a body of water, I mean, let's take Ames Pond, we're below the line, Easton owns it, above the line, Stoughton owns it, but I don't know that there's a title that you would find somewhere defining Ames Pond is owned by the town of Stoughton, or you would find, I mean, I don't see how a title to a pond exists. I mean, we have titles to the land we bought at Glen Echo, there are titles to all the land in the lots in Canton that people own. The implications of some kind of title to that body of water, there's gonna be in some Norfolk deeds record that's gonna say this chunk of Ames Pond or Glen Echo Pond is owned by the town of Stoughton.
Let me put up on the screen what I've got on, what I found. Should give you a moment.
Do we have a lawyer in the group, maybe?
No, we used to have
We
three.
do not. One time we had three. Some of those meetings got interesting.
I think this is what I saw. Yeah, that is it.
And 2/3 of the pond lies within Canton, 1/3 in Stoughton. However, the Canton Commission owns the entire pond, originally acquired by the town for the conservation of the town's water supply in the mid-1800s. The pond was enlarged by damming.
I think that's a separate sentence.
Yeah, it is a separate, because it was in the middle of the 1800s that the pond was divided. Before the mid-1800s, the pond was all Canton. Then in 1845-ish, the town line was changed to reflect, so that now it goes right in the middle of the pond. So that we own half of it, and they own half of it. This is,
Well, they own 2/3 and we own 1/3 is what this says, like.
Well, no, it says Canton owns the entire pond.
But they own actually, yeah, it says 2/3 lies within Canton, 1/3 lies within Stoughton, but Canton owns it.
So if that is true, they should be able to back that up with a document.
Yeah, and that's the question that I think we need to have an answer on before we can move anywhere with this proposal.
yeah, and to me, this sentence is messed up, because the reason you ran into it, they have a period there, right? Is that to the town's water supply?
Yeah, there's a
Period, yeah, and then they have a small I, that's why I wasn't sure if it was a run-on sentence
It's a
there,
separate
but.
sentence.
Yeah, because I mean, I question this, but that's what they're saying, and so what we want to do is to have them admit that this is wrong.
Ideally,
Or prove
Or
that
that
it's
they
correct.
would, I mean, from our perspective, even if they own it, if they would allow us to do this, we can move forward. So we're not saying they have to be wrong, we just are saying we have to know we have the right to move forward.
it's more complicated because if you have two towns conservation commissions with jurisdiction,
Yeah.
then you've got to go before both of them.
Well, yeah, but again, I think that's pre-work to the CPC.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's helping you, Eric, it's telling you got some homework still.
Yeah.
I would
And,
like a title search.
maybe that's, if you get an idea of how much that would cost, and we can put it on the warrant, that would maybe be the first step.
Put a title search in the warrant?
That we have an article for the CPC to file the title
Well,
search, if that's what you want to do.
the title search is gonna cost money.
This article is to fund a study,
Yeah,
paid people to go do these calls, check these things out. If it takes 3 days of going after the Conservation Commission, writing letters, getting responses, that is what I envision these people we are hiring, the consultants, will do.
Is it within the
No.
scope that you've defined?
Pardon?
Is it within the scope that you defined with them?
It says permits. Isn't it part of the application says permitting? That's part of what the consultant to do is to do the permitting.
yeah, that sounds like it would be within the scope of what they do. And if
How much
they,
is this gonna be? I forgot.
so the application is what, $20,000?
$20,000, so I mean, that's,
2065.
but that goes well beyond just doing this first piece.
Yeah, it would explore the ins and outs of a stone jetty or something else. What kind of permitting would it take to put in a stone jetty or something else? And maybe probably going to the cost of the stone jetty or something else. I mean, I think it's worded broadly enough to cover all that, but am I wrong?
But part of the concern is we don't wanna do all that and spend $20,000 if the first piece tells us there's no way to go.
Although Eric has assured us that he can arrange it with the consultant, that if the first thing they do, and now correct me if I'm wrong, the first thing they do is they check with Canton to find out what the status is. And if we can't go forward, then they're under instructions to not spend any more money.
Yes.
Yes.
So we need to write that up and include it in that application. I guess we gotta re-look at that application and get a good solid explanation that we're going to town meeting, asking for $20,000, up to $20,000, whatever the number is, to do all this, but noted that step one is to establish the right to move forward, and we're gonna limit the spending if at that step before we go on.
Yes,
And part of that should be getting a quote from the consultant of what just the title search itself would cost. And I know, that may be difficult to get an exact number, but you should be able to at least get a range.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be the whole 20,000.
It's right.
I don't think it's out of order, whatever you wanna call it, for the town of Stoughton, the town engineer, I'm sorry, town lawyer, to, request a title search, and the town should know, the town should find out who owns the water, even for other purposes.
Is the Conservation Commission going to request that?
I have requested it from the assistant town manager. I would go to the town manager and ask that as well.
My guess is the Conservation Commission would have more sway with doing that.
Right, but that's true, but the Conservation Commission was, given the fact that Jim was part of them, and he made that statement. Once he made that statement, the Conservation Commission's concerns about whether or not it was can't seem to be mollified by that. They got other just sort of general questions, well, we haven't thought about it enough, we have to look at it. But the way I read that meeting was, once Jim Conlon said that, the Conservation Commission's concerns about that issue stopped.
They're not the ones that are being held accountable for spending the money. We are.
Right, and I mean, Jerry was here, and Jerry heard some of these concerns from this committee a month ago, and kind of, I hope, walked away with the feeling that we were really hoping Conservation Commission would give us a direction between then and now. And under advisement, Dwight, I had the same reaction you did, that sounds like, yeah, we're just punting the ball down the road, but in this case, that punt puts this project off for as much as another year.
Are they asking for further information with that fund?
Well, they did go out to see the stuff today, according to Eric, so that's a good sign.
They said they wanted a site visit, which they did today.
Okay, did they ask for other information like we're doing?
According to Jerry, they had a whole list of questions that Eric is going to get back to them in writing, which we should probably get a copy of, because at least according to Jerry, they were largely the same questions that were asked at this committee in December. And they met a few nights later, so.
Right, and we're merging now the two articles here because they discussed both of them on the same night, and there were questions about the other article, the shade pavilion, and the fences near it, so that I don't think they merged, but there were questions about the lawn and the fence that was gonna be on it and et cetera. So, and then the jetty was going to look where the fence is gonna be along the road going down to it. But the fact is that this particular article is just studying it and making recommendations about what will be done, where the fences or anything else will be. So, there were certain questions put out there, but the answers are not known. And the study hopefully will come up with answers and proposals and whatever, directing toward it. That's,
The position we're in is that, we may not meet again until the warrant is closed. So, I guess at this, and so basically this is the last meeting we have, unless we create a special meeting to schedule one, to finalize our recommendations for the town meeting. So this is beyond the 11th hour, that's the problem.
yeah, well, I would propose that we accept it.
And recommend it.
We can, without Conservation Commission support?
Well, it would be contingent as.
We could
as-
do
as
it
the
contingent upon, but
Right,
if it's contingent upon Conservation Commission approval,
absolutely.
we we could do that all the way through to town meeting. But it just, in my mind, leaves all these questions open, and in May, we're gonna be sitting around asking the same questions, and I don't wanna be in that position in front of town meeting. And I'm sure I'm not alone. So how do we get how do we get more definitive? I mean,
Well, I mean, my guess is we okay it with the right to withdraw it at the time, if conservation doesn't approve it, then it's withdrawn. If CPC votes yes, contingent on conservation commission approval, would be my solution. But I mean, given the timing, I don't know how else to do it, or else you just saying goodbye, see you later.
Don't you always have the right to withdraw before it gets to town meeting floor?
I'm not real keen on submitting something if I think I'm gonna have to withdraw it.
Yes.
I'm much happier with knowing we're going forward, and if an exception comes up that causes it to withdraw it, that's okay. That's just, it's asking for trouble, and putting a lot of extra work on this committee. That,
Well, the thing that
Should have been done.
would make it so that you'd have to withdraw it is if Canton owns it and won't give us permission to do it, then.
Or if conservation.
or if Conservation Commission
Does not approve.
doesn't approve.
Yeah, but you won't know whether Canton Conservation will, let's say Canton asserts their ownership rights, you won't know whether they're going to approve it or not until you have a hearing before.
I feel like I'm more concerned with Stoughton's conservation. It would be more embarrassing to us to have our own Conservation Commission say no to us. Because there's one where we should have an answer before we move forward. Canton's, we could say, well, okay, we went to them, and
Well, and then we need a design perhaps.
Yeah.
To get approval.
if they end up shutting it off, I don't feel as bad. 'Cause
Well, I still feel bad if only if it's an ownership issue and there's no way they're gonna let it go. You know, it can't actually does control. And we should have known.
yeah, that makes us look bad.
Well, there are two possibilities. Either we approve it, if we don't approve it contingently tonight, then it's off the table. That's why I'm recommending approving it contingently tonight, otherwise it's a moot point, it's not gonna make it to town meeting. So that's the either or the way I see it. If we propose it tonight and conservation approves it, which I believe they will, but if they don't, then we said we approve it contingent on conservation commission's approval. Otherwise,
Well, be careful, because what you're looking, conservation is two different jurisdictions. I'm talking about Stoughton Conservation. The first jurisdiction is, as trustees of Glen Echo. The second conservation, jurisdiction is as the administrators of the Wetlands Act. You won't know whether you get the answer to the second question until you've had a full hearing before them with, wetlands delineation and all of that. So that will take some time. The first issue would be, are they going to allow it as the trustees of Glen Echo? That can be decided much quicker.
Yeah, they can put off that second one.
and the second process will be done partially by the consultants that we are hiring to put that time in to pursue it.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're paying for a study to help get to the second approval. But having that first approval from the Conservation Commission would certainly help us up front.
Right, so if you're gonna make a motion that it be contingent on Concom approval, it would be not
As
approval,
trustees,
not
yeah.
wetlands approval, but as trustees. of the
Yeah.
park,
Well,
If we're gonna do it.
I still think we have done no investigation other than consulting with Jim Conlon on the Canton control issue. Or Barry's done something.
Barry, I think Eric made a phone
nothing
call, but didn't get a very definitive answer.
No, Eric makes some phone calls, I
Yeah.
just looked online. But we don't have a definitive answer to this issue.
What did they tell you, Eric?
the thing that's above, that we're looking at is kind of one of the things that they said. That there was something, awarded by the courts, back in the 1800s. Well, trying to read this, what you got up here. Right, mid-1800s, something was done, but then afterwards, the town lines, I believe, changed between Canton and Stoughton. Is that correct, Roy?
In the mid-1800s is when that happened.
And then, there was, so it may not hold. It may not hold water, if you pardon that expression.
We're just kind of grasping at straws, we
Yeah.
don't have anything definitive.
But then I also had that, response from one of the divisions in Canton showing us, referring to a square on that, GIS map, showing it's a stone.
Yes, and we already found that too.
Yeah, it is in Stoughton, we know that's in Stoughton. The question of who controls. Who is
There
in
is a
charge
pond.
of it is not something you can find on the GIS.
Yeah. So Dwight,
Right, it sounds like it's something, the problem seems to be something fairly simple. Either if Canton owns it, then then we ask for permission, but they might want us to go through with this, and see what we're planning to do before they give us permission. Or if they don't own it, then we're on our own. So, to me, when I'm not on your committee, it sounds like it's ready for a motion, and you can go with it.
the concern, Eric, is, yes, I mean, I think it would be nice if we at least had an answer to whether a team would be open to the idea of this. They may say, we want to see more detailed plans, which gives us a reason to support the study.
Yes.
But we don't even have that first answer.
Well, you kind of have to go through the study in order to give them a plan as to what we want to do.
Yeah, but you don't need the study to ask them,
Anyway.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
You don't need,
Why don't we, go ahead.
you don't need a study to get an idea of whether or not they're willing to let us move forward contingent upon the study.
Maybe, but if they want to know what we're going to do, and we don't know what we're going to do because we don't have that study done, then we can't tell them.
And they may not have any rights at all here.
Thank you.
And we don't want to spend any money without knowing the answer to those two questions. Is our problem.
Essentially, we're exactly where we were at our last meeting.
Yes.
Nothing has changed on this particular project.
Other than Jim Conlon has a survey.
Yeah,
But
that's significant, but it doesn't really answer some of the concern. So it doesn't sound to me like we're ready. That being said, Dwight, you can certainly make a motion to approve it contingent to getting a couple of answers here, which would let us, if the committee wants, try to do something in the next couple of weeks prior to our next meeting. I just don't want to ask the town to jump through hoops to put something on there that we might say, oops, never mind. My opinion, I'm only one of 6
I
or 7 of us
make
here.
a motion that we approve this article contingent on the approval of the Conservation Commission as trustees of the land.
And when do we need that approval? Is that gonna be before town meeting?
Yes. Well, I mean, conservation, will be, they've had their field, they've had their field trip, but they can't, even with a field trip, they can't give an official okay until
Understood.
they have a meeting.
And as Barry pointed out, they're not giving a permission on the wetlands issues. It's just, I'd like to know at what point do we have to make a decision before town, I don't wanna be at town meeting saying we're still waiting for Conservation Commission.
This is, yeah.
Correct, we do not
They
have
should
it
be
from them by town
approving it
meeting.
before it comes.
Yeah, I mean, and we've said that for several months, so the project,
We've not had a second, therefore we can't have a discussion until we get a second.
well, I think we're still fine tuning the motion in terms of, I was trying to get
Sound like discussion.
a date on the on, yeah, it probably is, and I probably got it messed up, I'm sorry if I did. Is there a time frame in your mind? Do we need to say, you know, if they approve it in the next 2 months, by the end of March? I don't know when they finalize the warrant book, I would prefer to have this, if it's a no-go decision, I prefer to do that before they print the warrant and all that. But that really means we need to know by February 1st, because that's when the first week of February is when Board of Selectmen are doing it. So I don't know even if Eric is the
I mean, the
conservation.
best thing we can do is if we tell Concom, there's an article in CPC has approved, but contingent on the approval of Concom. We need your approval for that article to go forward. If it is not approved, it does not go forward. And then if they diddle and dawdle again at the next meeting or whatever, then by definition, we didn't get their approval and would be withdrawn. I mean, that's the only timeline I can imagine, that they have to approve it at a meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Eric, you need to make it clear to Concom that it's not approval of any work being done or anything, it's approval that they would be willing to let us go ahead with the study.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah, but the article,
And-
the application says.
That's what our application says, but I don't know what was said to Conservation Commission. If they just continue it under advisement, that's not an approval. So I guess I'm hearing that if we don't know that by January 31st, then we totally out of it.
Well, there are two, and that was the same contingency essentially that the pavilion is under as well,
Correct.
that our recommendation is under that
Yeah.
same contingency.
So I think to Dwight's concern, we could kind of handle it the same way, that we want to hear.
I'm concerned that we've been placed in a bad position because this has been submitted so late.
Yes.
And we are now, in effect, putting the Concom on the spot and ourselves making some bad decisions
Yeah.
because it's all trying to be.
These are issues that if we're talking in October and November about them, and we're actually gonna talk about this very issue in a generic form later on the agenda, but
Again, I'm point of order. We have a motion that hasn't been seconded. So we need to second it before we discuss
Okay.
it further.
Dwight, can you repeat the motion? Thank you, Rich.
The motion that we approve the article for the study of the waterfront and the jetty contingent upon the approval of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, do we have a second? Without a second, then the motion
That's
fails,
that.
and we don't need to talk about this anymore, but
Yeah.
Eric, I would say that I think there is still interest in getting this done. It's just, we gotta address some of these questions and get Concom's approval before we can push this forward.
And I want some investigation into camp, their actual right.
Well, I think, yes, and I think Concom may have asked those same questions, but until we see all that, we don't know that. So yes, on both counts. So that said, any final comments on this?
I mean, if Jim Conlon has any documentary evidence of what he's adamant about, then please have him forward it to us.
Yeah, we've just seen something, it's not like it's official, it's on the
Right, but
website.
it's enough to add to the confusion or concerns that were raised at our December meeting.
So there's no sense in me doing anything more with conservation of this.
But pushing them.
If it's not an article for the town meeting, is that correct?
I would think it would make sense to find
Why
out
would you wait?
what the facts are.
Well, if you get this done,
I think, Eric, it makes sense because we see what their concerns are, we find whenever we get to apply this again, and it looks like it's not gonna be now, because it's a without seconding the motion.
Okay,
But the next time we apply for whatever meeting, special, whatever, we will have more answers to these questions.
And the other thing-
Apparently not to be at the next town meeting, but so it goes.
The other thing I wanna point out is that the pavilion is also under the same things, our recommendation is,
Well,
has the same.
That's next on the agenda, so why don't we, would you get there? Let's not wait until 3 months, in fact, our new schedule that we're gonna talk about is not gonna let you wait that long. But let's not put ourselves in the same position of going around in circles at the last minute trying to get something done. Because I think there is support for the project, it's really the timing and whatnot that's a concern right now. So with that, I will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the follow-up for the Glen Echo Pavilion inventions, which you were given a presentation and the whole application in December. There were some questions on the budget, and I think I'm gonna say the timetable, because those are the two main things that I like to nail down, but can you give us an update of where we are in January? We did hear Conservation Commission also took this under advisement, so we didn't get the approval we were hoping for, we got a okay, but I'll stop talking.
well, about the only thing new would be the fences, because I got a quote, see if I can find it here.
Barry sent that
A
out.
quote on the, oh, you've got it on your, papers?
I did send it to everyone on the committee.
Oh, okay.
Later this afternoon, so everybody may not have had a chance to see it. But go ahead, Eric.
Speak of it, while I'm looking for it, or you
Oh, I can see if I can find it.
can. So you've got, the fence was, what, 9,000 something?
Hang on a minute, let me get, I can find the quote.
I thought it was 11 something.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Was it? All right.
So we're all on the same page here.
But now this is a new quote that you talked to them about after our last meeting, correct?
Yeah, this came through, today.
Just this week, yeah, it came through, I think, yesterday, from the date on it. But it also is, I believe, does it include a fence on both sides of that pathway? Because it had 383 feet.
It does, and I have.
Conservation requested a fence on the other side, and you also have the diagram of what the GIS person had done for us.
There's the diagram.
Okay, yes. All
Okay,
right, so
good.
now, going to that diagram, if we can get up to the top of it, here we are, that's good. And you see it goes up, there's a, if you can enlarge that fence, the gate area, right towards the top, that's the expensive part, that's, was that $17,000 on the?
Yeah, the fence I thought was 11 and then 17,000 in change for
That was the other way.
the gate.
Back to it, it's the
gate was more, there it
the
is.
gate was more money,
Thank
the gate was 17.1.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the fence was the 11,000, 10,724. And then the gate
Okay,
piece
so
was
now-
17,000.
Going back to the situation here where we've got that 20-foot fence, going right to the boulders, that is not good because we want to be able to have people walk from the trails to the right side across to the great lawn and not just have to walk around to the parking lot and to the pavilion in order to get to the other side. They can go from trail to trail if there's an opening where the 20-foot fence is. But of course, we want to block vehicles from going in there, and we want to be able to make it so that the DPW can have their lawn mowing equipment, and fire department can get in, the police department can get in. So we're proposing, instead of the fence being there, either the fence doesn't go all the way to the boulder and leave 3 or 4 foot space between the boulder and the fence, but again, the fence is expensive, or have ballards similar to what you see on the roadway going to the boat launch area. And I got some numbers on the bollards, I think it was, what the numbers on that? Dwight, did you have that? Did I send it to you?
It's with installation, Greg from engineering estimated to be $2,000, three bollards.
All right, so then, given the spacing there between the bollards, people could walk through. And another concern I had, I thought I had, was yes, that slope that you see is gravel and it's not, if we want to be, say it's wheelchair accessible, it's not. However, that wouldn't stop anybody who wanted to go down there. They could go down, and then if the opening between the bollards are large enough, they could also get in the Great Lawn area and in the area where we have the benches. I don't know if they want to get out of the wheelchair to go to the bench, but they could have the same view as the people have on the benches that we are proposing on this article.
So is the path from the parking area down to this point ADA compliant?
No, because it's steep. Currently, if I don't know if you can go up to where the tables are. Is that in there? Yeah, all right, there. You see the handicap parking space, which, by the way, they say is not proper, and we need to adjust that. But that slope going from the parking lot up to that first table, which is ADA accessible, is too steep. So
Which first table?
going down from the parking lot to the lake, of course, would be too steep, and the surface would not be acceptable for the minimum requirements of the ADA. I don't know, minimum, maximum, you have to have it better if you want them to go down there, according to the standards, but that doesn't stop anyone who wants to go down there in a wheelchair. Consider, I know the Boston Marathon has special wheelchairs and people who are Heartbreak Hill and so forth, but people, depending upon their strength and courage, endurance, can go other places where normally you wouldn't think they would.
So you're talking about from the parking spot, the handicap parking spot, down at the bottom of the screen, up to that bench on the right, just above, to the right of where it says 189 feet? Is that the one you're talking about? Or are you talking about the ones that are
No,
gonna?
all the way down. I'm saying if somebody wanted to go in a wheelchair down to that area, or down to the pond itself without going in the water, hopefully.
I think what Michael's asking is which set of tables are you talking about doesn't comply with?
Oh, I said benches.
Isn't there a bench, a table down on the?
We're talking benches. Yeah, there's proposed, there's a bench proposed, where you see the 189 feet.
Yeah, just,
Right in there is a path, and I believe the bench would be on that grassy area.
there's a
little
picnic
closer to the
table,
lake.
there's a picnic table type there now. I think that has a great view of the lake.
Yeah, there's a table there,
There's a
right?
table.
All right, all right.
Am I in the right
And there was
place?
gonna be a
Mike
bench in
Thurston?
that general area, maybe a little further back, but,
Would the
more
access,
benches.
would the access from the handicap spot down to that table, is
Yeah.
that ADA compliant?
No,
Do we have a sense of what it would take to make that ADA compliant? Is it something that we should consider?
no, because how you either have to make the lake higher, or the whole,
It's not all the way to the lake. What if we said, there's that one area with a bench overlooking the water? I mean, it's not that far from the water. But would it be unreasonable to have ADA access from the parking area down to that one bench?
I
I think
think
it's
so.
a question of how you change the pitch, because I think Eric is saying that just the gradient of the land is beyond, this is sort of where the perfect becomes the enemy of the good. That is too steep, just the way the land goes to be, I would say perfectly ADA compliant, but following the regulations of what it should be. The point is that take a wheelchair down there or get down there, but it would not be within the specifications of what they say handicap accessible should be. Is that correct,
Is
Eric?
there anywhere on the
Yeah,
lawn?
and further, it's a stone, I believe that's a stone driveway going down there. Yeah, and they're not, and that's not what they want. They want something paved. They want things pretty smooth to be acceptable. But that doesn't mean that we can't
I'm not confident we know.
have that opening large enough for at the bottom for a wheelchair, or that people won't want to try to go down there with a wheelchair.
I don't know if the section from the road, the circle at the end of Glen Echo Boulevard. So, yeah, I guess that is, it is gravel.
Yeah, it's not paved going down
I'm
along
talking about,
Great Lawn.
yeah, from here,
Yeah,
There's two stripes.
yeah, so it's 2 strikes against it. One is more easily solvable, I think, than the other, but to regrade obviously is quite an undertaking.
It has to be quite acceptable.
If we wanted to do that, it would have been in the plan for the park when they did all this clearing the trees and so forth, and I don't think it makes sense. We can try to make everything handicapped accessible. In an ideal world, it would be, but there are just things that are not practical. I don't like saying that, but it's something that's real. I mean, the Clap building, there are stairs there, and
let's stick with
to
Glen Echo.
do this, I'm gonna tear down the building. Yeah, I think it's just a fence. I mean, anything else you want, is that, all we want to talk about the fence?
Is
Questions on this?
is the lawn itself, I don't know what the slope on it is, or the steepness is, could someone on a wheelchair, would it be ADA? Because I know people on a wheelchair could do it, but we're not worried about what someone could do, we're worried about meeting a certain standard. And trying to understand if trying to meet that standard would constitute what they call the reasonable accommodation.
I don't think the grass surface is ADA
Right.
compliant at all.
No,
By definition.
I do know you can use a chip then.
What?
Wood chips,
No, wood chips,
would be good.
well, we
again,
should work on the
It's
road.
less than ideal.
On the beach, down the Cape, they have handicap access to the water. And it basically is a mat and a special wheelchair. I mean, is it something we could arrange as part of the project, say, we're gonna buy this wheelchair, and we'll make it, granted, someone's gonna have to call us and say, hey, the recreation, I mean, it's just, what kind of an amenity can we put out there for those people who require the ADA accessibility?
To do what?
To use the land the same way that the people who are able-bodied can. And not all of the land, we're not,
Trails.
I'm sorry, what?
We got trails going off to the right and so forth. You can't work those, can you?
We're not saying they have to have access to every part of Glen Echo.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm pushing for is, what part of it can we make accessible so that we can say, hey, folks, we thought of everybody in town and you all have a right, and yes, I don't think they're asking for access to the entire 98 acres. But it would be nice to have a part of this beautiful park that's out there for our residents, be out there for residents who require a little bit extra accessibility issue.
But I do think that was one improvement that Eric made by moving the location of that building, that shed, shade structure.
pavilion.
Pavilion.
Shape pavilion, yeah.
Well, by bringing it up front.
Yeah.
But that's, excuse me, that's gonna be, raised. Right now it's too low because the slope going to it is too much. But if when they put the new pad down, it's gonna be raised. And, there's 3 tables currently, and we're gonna put a 4th one in, which is going to have one wheelchair spot. So there'll be 2 spots that are available underneath the pavilion.
So it's raised, but they can get in under the pavilion, and there'll be one table that will be accessible to them,
No, 2 tables.
2 tables.
One's currently accessible. This is like I guess it would be a 7-seater, and the, one of those 6 regular seats and 1 opening for a wheelchair. And there are gonna be 2 of those. We're trying hard to find one that matches the one that we've got. It's a little difficult, because I don't want it to be a hodgepodge of different shaped tables.
But what we do have is that the tables, will be 2 of them will be handicap accessible from the parking lot.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Right, so that we have. Going down to the water is not visually handicap accessible in complications with the surface and the grade.
Right.
So the accessible part is from the driveway to the table.
If you want to go further with that, there would be another article, another town meeting, and probably another chairman.
I guess in my mind, I know what you're talking about in terms of the handicap access from the parking spaces to the picnic area. And that's based on what was reported in the Collins report, correct? Eric?
Who are you asking?
You, Eric.
Can you please, I'm sorry?
The information you gave us about the grade coming from the parking
Yes.
area to the tables is not ADA compliant, is that from the Collins report?
Well, I didn't read the Collins report, but I did speak with Charlotte Mullen, who's the ADA representative, or something to do with it.
I think she's the chair of that committee.
Yes.
Okay, now, another thought
Eric,
is that roadway is not handicap accessible. There's three spots down the end that you can't see on this diagram, where people are supposed to take their kayaks and canoes off their cars, put them into the water or near the water, put their equipment in there, then take the cars and drive it back up to the parking area. But what could happen is someone could drive the person with the wheelchair, or the person who has the wheelchair could drive down and park in one of those 2 spots. Not ideal as far as taking up the space if someone wants to launch a kayak or canoe, but if they could get that far, then we could have the bollards open wide enough for a wheelchair to get through to the Great Lawn area. They could get in there, but not according to ADA regulations. It's not ADA compliant, but it's something that could be done.
did Charlotte express any interest in trying to do something ADA compliant somewhere in this area?
Right, she was gonna give me a width that we needed to open up in that spot, but we agreed that the slope was too big to get down there, and the driveway was, the crushed stones was not acceptable surface for the wheelchairs, so that's where we were at.
Okay, but did we then consider, for example, what you're saying, well, what if we put in a handicap spot and made a handicap bench, handicap accessible bench, somewhere down closer to the water, not in the water, but something that we could throw out there to say, hey, look, we've considered and we've tried to do something extra special nice.
Yeah, well, I did not discuss that with her, but again, it's not ADA acceptable for their regulations, but that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't do it.
Okay, I want to do something that is within the realm of ADA acceptable. And
Well, then
it's not acceptable to have them in a wheelchair get down there themselves, but what if, as you said, what if we put in a special parking spot down there for somebody with handicap accessibility? So they could go and sit.
Now they get out of the car to the wheelchair. Now where's the paved area?
We
That would be
put,
difficult, but I don't think they're.
Eric, you could put a parking area and a 10-foot walkway to where the bench is. It's gonna add cost, but
Another project.
Why does it have to be another
Expand
project?
This one.
I don't understand why that would have to be another project. Why can't it be part of a project that we're doing for the entire town? Go back to the comments we heard from Cynthia Walsh at the public hearing. This has to become part of our thought process as we're doing these projects, not an afterthought that, oh, we can come back and take care of that later. It's a mindset change that I think we all ought to be involved in.
Well, if
If I
I
accept the application doesn't have anything mentioned of that. So how can we expand that? I don't know.
By putting it in,
Then it means more costs and another application.
no, it doesn't mean another application. I mean, this is again what we talked about in December. Should we consider somehow accommodating ADA accessible needs for people here on this site? And I think we have a much nicer case going to town meeting that we're gonna put in the pavilion, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. We have a spot here for, they can get into the pavilion, handicap accessible, but they can also go down here and see the water and have a little picnic at that bench. I think that would be a great show, especially in light of a Collins report that came back on the town and showed how many places in town we have missed that thought. And we're not alone. It's not, we didn't do anything wrong. It's just a reality. I mean, Cynthia put it very
Even the
well.
library got that great too.
Cynthia put it very well, that she was so involved in a lot of this stuff and she never gave it a thought until she got to the point where she became acutely aware of the difficulties. And I think her message to us, which is, it would be good to build that in from the start of what we're doing.
It might involve taking down more trees too, and leveling the land.
Michael, I hear what you're saying, but you're proposing that as part of this article that we're putting in, that we add something. We already know you can drive the car down, you could drive the car to a handicap marked space. The question is, once they got out of their car, what would we would be saying that we would pave it near it, or what would we actually add to this to fulfill what you're asking for? We can do the handicap parking space, but then, once they get out of their car, are we proposing that there's a asphalt path
Well,
through?
There'd be no point putting a handicap parking space down there if there wasn't a reason for them to get out of their car and have access to something. So yeah, it kind of goes hand in, there's already a bench there, but maybe we have to expand the concrete or asphalt around that bench to do something. My only, and I thought I brought this up a month ago, is there something we can do here to make this project more appealable to the town by adding in ADA accessible items beyond just the pavilion? And I thought that was what Eric was gonna cover a little bit, not a, yeah, no, that doesn't qualify.
Yeah, what I think he bumped into was the complexities of the grade, which can be overcome by the car getting down there, the person being driven down. Then when they get out of their car,
Presumably, we would build an area where they could have a bench and something in a beautiful view of the water.
right, there would be like even a sidewalk at the back. It is a question of sort of the nuts and bolts of putting a sidewalk from where they get out of their car, something asphalt to a bench or a
Yeah.
table that was down there.
And I don't know if that would be acceptable to them or worthwhile. It was just a thought, that in my mind, if we can make this more ADA acceptable, I think it's a better project.
I'd love to, but there's problems.
Right now, we are making it ADA accessible for the picnic tables and pavilion at Glen Echo are ADA accessible. We have a new pavilion which will be ADA accessible. That's kind of where we are right now. We all agree, that's what we have.
If someone in a wheelchair wants to sit on a bench, it's, they probably wouldn't want to sit on the bench, but if somebody's with them, the person with them could sit on the bench and that the person in the wheelchair could sit in the wheelchair and they could converse or enjoy the view together.
And again, I don't wanna push this and take up the whole time, I was trying to drill that thought process in. So maybe we package it as is, highlight that, and tell them we're gonna come back with something else. Although, if we're gonna tell them that, we've gotta have a better idea of what that something else is gonna be, because telling them we're gonna put a handicap parking spot in down there isn't enough. I just wanna make that part of our core thinking about areas like this. Because I think I was touched by what Cynthia had expressed at the public hearing.
Now,
So,
as it is, without the handicapped area down the bottom, do you think it's sellable for town meeting?
as is now,
Yeah.
I think so. I think the town should be very happy with the pavilion and, I mean, a couple other questions, I mean, and we talked about them and you got some good answers on the whole fence thing. I like the fence on both sides. We had talked about that. I would ask a question too, though. You talked about taking some of the benches out that are in there, the picnic tables that are down closer to the water?
No,
No?
No, it's the ones
the picnic tables that we were moving were those.
Are the ones that are already up front? Okay. So those ones will stay.
Well, they're gonna get temporarily moved so that they can, do whatever's required on the land.
The ones down towards the water are gonna stay.
Yes,
They just won't be
the only
protected
thing
by the
we're doing
pavilion.
with benches, with tables, is, temporarily removing the three that are there on the drawing.
Near the parking
Near
area.
right, and then, regrading a little bit, putting a concrete pad in, putting the shade pavilion up, and then putting those three tables and one additional table that's gonna be purchased together. So there'll be two places for wheelchairs in this,
Yeah.
area, and, two other tables for people that don't have wheelchairs. Or people with wheelchairs want to just sit by themselves and can work on their lap or
No,
something.
that part is
Yeah,
good.
that's fine too. There'll be plenty of room in the gazebo, because the shape of it, because the table is supposed to take up about half the space of the area under the shape of it.
Okay, Dwight, you have a question?
I would propose that we vote on this article as written, but we know that the upcoming one that's gonna be studying the jetty, and one would assume the access to the jetty, that in the future, that would be something that we're talking about what we're putting down there as a dock, the access to it, that would be a time to logically add something down closer to the water. It is too late to add it right now.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's
You
a
don't
great
wanna
idea.
rush that either, you wanna be able to.
Right, we wanna do it right, that's the problem, I don't wanna.
Is that the motion?
So I make a
We've already
motion that we
recommended
accept this proposal.
Well, we've already recommended it at our last meeting.
Well, I thought we deferred taking the final vote on it until tonight.
No, we.
But we did put it on that,
Subject to Conservation Commission approval.
and it's still gonna be subject to conservation approval, which in this case,
We can refine the motion so that it's Conservation Commission approval as trustees, not as wetlands.
well, but this isn't a wetlands issue, is it?
Well, it's in the jurisdiction because it's right off the shore of the pond.
What, the fencing?
No, yeah. And the pavilion.
The pavilion's not within 100 feet of the pond.
No?
No, it's, look, it was 189 feet down and then a lot further.
So there's no wetlands jurisdiction, well, do we know there's no
I
wetlands
don't believe
jurisdiction?
so.
I don't know, I don't, that,
Conservation recommended the fence in the right side, so they're okay with fence.
The fence might.
a piece of the fence is gonna get close.
Maybe we should just clarify.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Well-
specify.
Rich?
The proposed location for the new shade pavilion, go to the left.
Yes.
There is streams down, or it drops off really.
Yeah, it's
Still less than 100 feet.
We got, I mean, I'm okay personally with approving that subject to conservation commission approval before town meeting.
as trustees.
No,
No?
I agree. Just, you know, if that's a perennial stream, which it may well be, the jurisdiction is what, 300 feet, 200 feet, 200 feet? Go back to my old Concom days.
Yeah.
The question is, how do we want that to have to happen before town meeting? It's a long process.
I just said Concom approval.
Yeah,
Because already the picnic tables were put in down there right next to the pond, whatever permitting was done for that, and that was done. We already have tables up there, we're putting a building on top of tables that are already up there. So, we go for Concom permissions, period, according to them, we've already okayed this. I would just continue the process saying, yes, we're okaying it contingent on Concom approval.
yeah,
Which we did.
I don't think we wanna complicate this going in town meeting saying, well, Concom's only approved this piece of it. Cause I think town meeting deserves better than that, to only have a half of a contingency approved. So I think we leave it as Concom approval and see what Concom does.
With the period.
I agree.
Okay, that's what you said.
Any other questions on the overall, anything else you wanted to add, Eric? We may have sidetracked you with a few points.
No, not at all.
I mean, but this was a follow-up to
But
answer some of these.
everybody note that Eric doesn't want that gate there. He wants to put it in the bollards instead.
Is that, the bollards are where that last section of fence marked 20 feet is where you were talking? Correct, Eric?
Yeah, that's the area, and the fence can actually go further than the, what is it, 100 and, I can't even read it.
Yeah, whatever the exact is.
You can go a little bit further, and then the bollards could be set up.
And as you said, you'll make sure there's access from the trail going across so people
No,
don't have to
I
climb over
think
the fence.
exactly, I think they need the 20 feet for the access to the fire equipment and so
Yeah,
forth.
however
So
they,
yes, we leave it at 20 feet, the
These
fence
are
would not
removable bollards?
extend more.
yes.
And the bollards would be removable, the same as the bollards going to the lake itself.
And the good news also too, to jump, the original budget, as I recall, Eric, you had 12,000 in for the fence, which came in at 11,000 with 2,000 more for the bollard, so it's only in, but we did have a contingency and then we had a kind of rounded off contingency as well.
Right.
So we're in good shape budget-wise, which we would not have been with the gate, because the gate would have thrown a big loop into the number.
Yeah.
So that part worked out well.
Or either that or since there were many parts in this budget, something might be under and something like.
That's always gonna happen, but
We're not
overall,
talking about the gate anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah,
Here's the budget, and obviously, we've expanded the line for the fence from 12,000 to almost another $2,000. So there's a contingency of 35,000, that's well within that.
yeah, but there was also another 3,500, 3,350 contingency at the bottom in effect, because we rounded up from 176 to 180.
True.
So that will cover the balance.
True.
Yes.
We're well within whatever contingency.
So we're in good shape, budget-wise with those things. Pavilion, 44 by 24, 43,000. How does that compare to the one we saw at
I don't
Cape
have,
Reynolds?
I don't have a number in my head that I can reliably
Yeah.
call.
So Cape and Rose is much
But
smaller.
that's a
Yes, it
16
is.
That's 16 by 16, so that's twice more than twice.
more than
Yeah.
twice as big?
But yours is more ornate.
Yours is better looking and sturdier looking. But I don't know what that cost-wise would
Well, the metal roof was relatively inexpensive compared to using asphalt shingles. You put them on more quickly, also have longer life.
Yeah.
But there's no finish other than the columns. They're finished with that PVC style wood.
Yeah.
That's it. And underneath is timber.
So
But they were pretty ones, but they wanted to keep the cost down.
well, it wasn't as bad, the pretty is nice, but the sturdiness also, but I don't know, is it, cause this is 43,000 plus another 40,000 for construction, so it's $83,000. But it is much bigger.
Yeah, 16 by 16 versus this is considerably bigger.
It's a bigger parking. I think.
Oh, I'm glad that it's bigger, yes, there's a lot more room.
Also, you have a lot more concrete. It's
Yeah, which-
footage of concrete as you do a pavilion. Whereas the cable.
But he's got the cost of the concrete in there, so is it worth considering something like what you did, compare the cost and see how it compares to the $80,000?
Yeah, I can dig.
Because Eric said, I think Eric, you're looking for a cover and something good, sturdy. It's just an alternative instead of what you're calling the pavilion. Should we look at how much it cost?
What were the dimensions on this one?
44 by 16.
24.
I'm sorry, no, that's Rich's.
No,
Rich is
24 by
16.
24 is the shade
Yeah.
pavilion. Mine is 16 by 16.
So that's considerably, when you multiply.
Oh, yeah,
that,
it's 3 times in that.
I mean, it's more than that.
Probably, yeah, probably about
it's
5 or 6 times.
Yeah. As I recall, the gazebo was priced at around $15,000 on the bid that, on the budget we used to get the bid that won the bid. I don't recall the cost of the concrete. And I thought that gazebo, as I recall, seemed relatively inexpensive.
Just a thought, I mean, because that one,
But times 4, and in 5 years, or 4 years,
You
but
do have a different layout if you do.
we have a square years rectangle.
couldn't you build that same type of thing on it? And maybe not, just,
It's gotta be more expensive. It's just much more on any
okay, thanks. If you told me it was 100,000 versus the 80,000 that we've got in there, I might be inclined to go for it, but that's just maybe too late, because we're here, so don't let me derail that. Okay, so then, any more questions? Is it time to make a motion?
Well, we don't need
We kind of have it, we're all set?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, well, thanks, Eric.
thanks, Eric.
Thanks, sir.
You know,
Thanks, Lloyd.
Good night.
if anything changes, let us know.
Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. We've got approved transfer for the band payment for the railroad depot. Gary, if you could pull up the document.
That's just what we have now.
And this we've talked about, this is the article that was approved, I think, back in 2015 for $350,000 to restore the railroad depot,
And this is,
restore and protect.
this we bonded,
It was a bond. The town bonded $30,000 of it, spent $340,000, so they had $310,000 waiting to be bonded. After a couple of years, the ban either needed to be started to get paid off, or it needed to be converted to a bond, and Bill Rowe had come to us and said, we gotta start doing this, and we went back and said, why don't we just pay off the ban? So we voted, and in the budget 2 years ago, there was $320,000 to pay off the ban.
Actually, it was Bill who said, let's just pay off the whole thing.
Yeah.
and town meeting approved it already.
Town meeting approved that, but somehow they paid off the ban, but didn't provide off, in fact, we had put in another article that effectively would have transferred the money from the CPC to wherever they used to pay off the ban. They told us that was redundant, they didn't need it because it was in the budget.
What we did was we budgeted a separate line item in our budget for this $320,000.
Yeah, I remember we got it approved.
So they managed to get the ban paid off, but they're now sitting with a deficit in a particular account, in one account on the town's balance sheet, and all the money is sitting in the CPC account. So Biz has said to us, you have to do something to provide authorization to transfer, and they're gonna transfer the money from one CPC fund to another CPC fund. So it's a pure transfer, it's not a new expense, and there are two things. This list that Barry's put forth on us is a list of all of the capital projects, the fund balance. Biz put this together as of June 30th. You can see the railroad station sticks out with a credit on it of $310,867. the money's there, they just need authorization to move it from one CPC account to another CPC account.
So technically, is there a cost in this at all?
No, I would say the cost is zero.
Okay.
I would put this in as a cost of zero, and I wrote it out, in fact, we have the wording that we put together, Barry and I wrote up something. Tweaked it a bit, and here's what we proposed as the article, to see if the town will transfer pursuant to GLC 44B, the Community Preservation Act, the sum of $310,867.88 to clear the deficit and expenditures related to Munis Project 10060, rehabilitation. I didn't want to put it in as one of these to borrow this, that, or the other thing and give a whole lot of options. To me, this is very straightforward. You're asking us for permission to transfer between this account and this account.
So we're not transferring into another CPC account, we're transferring into a town account.
Because the deficit is also, there are two CPC funds. This I've talked about a million times. It's the 3014 and the 5040.
This is a
The 3014 is our operating account, and the money is in there. The undesignated fund is part of that fund, as are all our reserves. And that's all our revenue comes into there, our administrative expenses, our debt service all comes out of there. Then there's a separate fund, 5040, where what they typically do each year, and this was news to me in the last 2 years, they transfer the money from 3014 into 5040. And then the projects are paid out of 5040, and then when we close them like we did at the November town meeting, that gives them the authorization to move the money back from 5040 into the 3014. It seems a little bureaucratic, but it's what they need.
But it's sort of an operating account versus a storage account?
Yeah, they call it the capital projects
Exactly.
account fund, and that's what was shown on the deed. So this is in the document that Barry sent out, it's what we're putting forth to them. We haven't reviewed it with them.
That's our money invested.
The town invests with, actually, it's the same, I forget the name of the group bought that the SRA, Bartholomew?
Yeah, that's what we utilize, yeah.
Because when I put in the whole debt program for the SRA, we ended up with the townspeople, which we thought was a good connection. They handle all that money, and that's where we get this big credit on the CP2 at the end of the year. Remember last year, we got like $300,000. It was so much larger than what we had ever gotten. And it's 2 years ago, I haven't seen what we got last year. And it was because interest rates had gone up from fractions of 1% to 3%, 4%. So I do expect that in 2024, we're also gonna get a big number. In fact, at the rate we're going, in 2025, we're gonna get a big number. All which is good. But yeah, the town invests conservatively. They can't go wild with this because there are very strict municipal accounting guidelines. So anyway, and then there's an explanation in there, we wrote up, submitted it to them. I'm sure we'll be reviewing this, Barry and I are trying to get a meeting together with Biz sometime in January, and we'll go over this wording wise to see if it meets, but I would suggest it does meet what she's told us she needs from us. So we'll work out the wording with her and the town attorney. So it's just to help them clear the balance sheet on the town's books.
Did I not put wood in last summer when I was putting in?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that quite.
Dwight, can you repeat that?
I think he's on the phone.
Were you talking to us or someone else?
What?
Were you talking to us, Dwight?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve this transfer for the payment.
Second.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. John Lenahan?
Yes.
Rich? Yes. Dwight?
Yeah,
Von Me?
Yes.
Who else do we have?
You.
And then
Rodney?
Rodney's
Oh, is he gone?
Rodney, okay, that's what I was looking for. Bob, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I forgot Bob was there. Even though I'm looking at him. Chair votes yes.
So wait, how, that's 6 votes?
6, because we lost
Three
one.
there, 3 here.
We added one and
That's
just lost.
the reason
Okay,
I
great.
draw your attention.
Well, I was remembering the order. It was when we started. Good thing. Anyway, that's a pretty straightforward thing. Okay, administrative items, we got a long list, but these should all be relatively quick. Chair's report, couple things that actually we've already covered. We had a meeting with, no, actually we didn't. I keep getting confused between Eagle Senior Life and Father Bill. So we had the debt meeting with the people from Father's Bill. I went, you couldn't make it that day. But they're moving along in a very similar track in terms of the lender advisor, and they got a great spreadsheet dealing it all out. Not really an issue for us, because we're not gonna pay out till the end of their project, but, so we had that meeting and it went over well, and we're a small piece of, they've got like a $10 million project, and we're doing $50,000. There's a couple of things coming up here that we'll cover. I'll cover some as treasurers and get to the others on there. But as a chair, I don't think, Barry alluded to it at the beginning, and I don't know that we need to go into a lot tonight, but he's set up for us a Google Drive. We actually shared the agenda and the documents for tonight's meeting through it.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a very useful, so I thank Barry for all his work doing it. Useful place to hold all this stuff. I've dumped in the last 2 years worth of treasurer's reports. We've put in all these project closeouts, and all in one place. Click of the button, you go to this Google Drive, and everything's gonna be at your fingertips. And just sharing documents for the meeting. It's like there's one copy out there. There's not a, oh, we did this, then you gotta add it. Everybody gets another email with a whole set of documents. It's all gonna be in great shape, so.
Yeah, the question I have is when something is changed, I don't know, the answer is, if I change something in a Google Drive that's shared with other people, do those people get notified when the document changes or when something?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
There may be a way to set it up to do that, but as you and I were putting stuff in and out of it, I wasn't getting notifications that you hit it. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's still a good place, and we will maybe at the next meeting go through and show you the whole thing. That's where I put, for example, the pictures, Rich, that then Barry was able to just go through and look at it and stuff, so. Just a good thing. I did do a very brief, but I think I got it. Barry, did you get an email from me at the start of the meeting? Did it come in? It was after the meeting started, because I was having trouble logging in. I put together a
Oh, I
full,
see it now, treasurer's report.
can you show that on the screen? There's 4 pages, 2 of which are below this, because I was gonna talk about them, and all I did was pull them together. I was able to finally catch up to someone in the accounting office and get some updated numbers for fiscal year 2025.
You see,
And I worked out a couple of schedules that I gave to Barry, and he put them in on that agenda document, but there was 2 more that I wanted to look at. So I just created a quick PowerPoint. I didn't get to it until today, so I didn't even send it out. Yeah. So just real quickly, we're gonna take a look at year-to-date through January 6th, the operating expenses for this committee, the invoices that have been paid for CPC projects through January 6th, going back July 1st through January 6th. A list of items that I'd like to see us get closed at the ATM of 2025, and then just a summary of what that leaves us with the projects in process. So if we can flip that page, Barry. Operating expenses, slightly different format, but it's the same items we've always looked at. The report I got was in a different format stuff, so I kind of did this as a quick and dirty way to look at it. You can see our annual budget is $59,248. Our year-to-date expenditures, administrative expenses are a little under $12,000. No big surprise. I mean, we spent a little bit on some of the advertising for some of the announcements that we put out there for the public hearing and whatnot. And the dues and subscription is the coalition dues. We pay once a year. Debt service, the budget is $345,297. Year-to-date is paid about half. I mean, the various bonds that we have all have different due dates throughout the year. So they're all on budget because we know what those payments are gonna be. But as of January 6th, we're a little bit more than halfway done paying those. So we look at this periodically. It's no surprises. It's in good shape. Next page is a list, a little harder to read, but I was a little surprised. We've only paid 13 invoices for all the projects that we have ongoing. You can see some for the restoration of the antique fire engine, which we're almost ready to close out. There was 2 invoices for that. There was, the big payment we had, John, was the acquisition of Benson Road for $161,000. We have talked with Biz in the past And she's actually asked us, which is something we had always asked for, is to get copies of the invoices, which I think would be good. I'd love to be able to come into these meetings with copies, even if it's hey, here's copies for all of us of the invoices that were paid last month. We don't have that yet, but I was able to extract some information from their file to at least give us an idea who got paid, and the comment is what they have in the system. So you can kind of tell what it is. The Old Stowe Music Society, you can see they bought the laptop scanner and external. They bought some foldable chairs and dress. I think there's a little bit more spending coming on that. I thought there was more than that. The golf course renovations, the depot stabilization. A couple of bills for Drumley, Roxanne, whatever, Roseanne, the architect, DRA. But the line in the middle, we're gonna follow up on. They paid the MBTA $1,000 fee for something. I'm not sure how that fits into the appropriation that we gave them $200,000 for.
Yeah.
But this is one of the reasons we should be reviewing this stuff and seeing it, and not just getting totals at the end. So I just wanted to share that. And then Marksfield, actually, I was happy to see there is a couple of bills, so there's obviously work going on in November, in the last couple of months with the design services for Marksfield.
The other thing, Cape and Reynolds invoices aren't on this report because they were processed separately.
I think whatever they've paid for the dog park and community gardens is probably now going into those other projects that they set up, which is outside of the CPC. Because I'm guessing there had to be some invoices for Cape and Reynolds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
But remember, they moved money out and put it against where the Stanton money came in and where the Cape and Reynolds donation came in. So we will get those pieces, but that isn't in the funds that I have the information for. So. Next slide, Barry, is just a list of the 12 projects that I think I would love to see us close. A couple of them we may not be able to, but the first one is the railroad station, the one we just talked about. There may be two pieces of that. The transfer of the 310 to fix the account, but then a formal closing to return the $9,000 back to the undesignated. The fire station one's been out there. We haven't spent any money in a couple of years.
We did get a signed closeout. That's
We got a signed closeout. The restoration of the fire engine, Joe's pretty much set. We believe there's one invoice still to come in on that, so that should be easy. The barn, Dwight had signed off on the barn a long time ago. OSMS, yeah, because I think we had an estimate of $5,000, even though we only saw a couple of invoices. Cape and Reynolds, I don't know, Rich, we'll have to work with them, and I'll work with them and find out what all those invoices are. That one we may or may not,
I'm
but
sure Frank can help.
by May, we should be able to get there. So I'd like to close that out. This Glen Echo, as well as Cape and Reynolds. Now, Glen Echo is really only $5,000. It shows 81, but that's that park grant that is, again, somewhere else in the book, so it needs to be closed. And what? So we're working towards, and I think we got about half of them done now in some form of process that Barry's working on to get the signatures. So then the next page is the one really.
I know the one on the bottom, we do have a sign.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Next page is, what's left behind is 15 projects that is really the focus of what's going on for us, the projects we need to manage in the coming year. And it's really only 14 because the first two are both Halloran Park because of the supplemental that we approved in May. You can see there's 300 and then the 164. I added in a column here, that's part of why I want to put this up. Who the CPC representative, point person, whatever, somebody that's on our committee or in the form of Barry, who's kind of being the key person to kind of keep the project information flowing. And what I'd like to see is us maybe more active in keeping the projects moving. I left a couple because they aren't necessarily cut and dried as to who, the ones that obviously John was already doing, Benson Road. Dwight has got a couple of historic ones that are pretty cut and dried, that he's the right guy, he's been working on some of them. Barry's been working with some of the people on, the Atkinson Ave, Hebrew Senior Life. The three that I wasn't really sure who should be our point person even though they're recreation, I don't know that Larice necessarily should get stuck with every recreation project, because it's also the most projects we have, and we go up there, but the Hanson School Playground, we're not showing any money spent yet to date. I know we've had a couple of updates on that project, people are working on it, but maybe, I think we expect come the springtime this year, we will start seeing a lot more activity there, because they've been doing a lot of the non-spending planning type stuff up front. The same with the Elm Street Fields Complex and the Marks Field. Again, we saw the 2 invoices that were paid for Marks Field. I was getting a little nervous. It's been 6 months and I walk up there with a dog and I don't see a lot of work being done at Marks Field. So it's like, okay, we're 6 months into it. What are we gonna start seeing? And I think they're coming in next month. So just kind of a point person to help us make sure we're doing everything we can do to move these projects forward.
My plan is to have everybody, except for Deb from University of Life, who's here tonight. I think all of the other projects are coming before us in our next meeting.
In February.
Yes. So that was it from a treasury perspective. I really just wanted to cover the update on 25 spending and saying that in the past, when I had the list of open projects, it was like 27, 28 projects, because we weren't in the habit of closing stuff. That whole hullabaloo over the sunset provision really forced us to say, you know what, let's clean up our own act. We were exempted from the Sunset Act as it is, so that we are in control of our own destiny, but we have to then live up to that and do our own homework, and I think we're doing that. That was it. So next on the agenda, any questions on any of that? I know I always run through that really quick, but it seems pretty simple to me, but I've already looked at it for a bit, so.
No, I think that's a wealth of information. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things.
and the point being, it's here for you, just, I want you all to be informed, but there's not a whole lot you need to do with it, you know?
You go through town meeting, something gets approved, and then it's two or 3 years later, where are you at? What have you spent? What have you done?
We wanna get out of that.
Yeah,
And I think Barry, by scheduling these updates, and we're gonna talk, as we actually put together a little form to direct the conversation on those updates of what we're looking for, and being very specific and action-oriented about what we want people to do. And, you know,
It's a great segue for me.
So, yes, administrators report.
If I could, let me go to exactly what Michael was talking about. This is the form, we haven't started this yet, but start doing it for the people coming in next month. And it's just, you know, a set of basic questions for people to answer, so we have some idea before they get here of what we're gonna talk about. And it gives it some structure, it gives it some predictability, and it's a good way to track it. Plus, the other thing is that if they're submitted in writing, then we have a record of it.
Yeah, exactly, that's.
So,
And, you know, look at what work has been initiated or completed since the last time you were here, or since your project. What steps are you gonna do in the next 3 months? I don't wanna wait 3 more months and find out, well, you know, it kinda helps us and helps them, I think. Some idea of when we expect it, and we're not always gonna know the answers, and they can't necessarily give you a definitive answer as to when it's gonna be complete, but what are they thinking? Because that helps us move forward. Obstacles, cost overruns, things that we should know about. What do they anticipate happening? I mean, a great example, and it works, Rich with the dog park. For months, we've been getting just a few minutes, but he's here with us, so it's a little bit easier.
that's
Some of these other projects, we haven't even talked to people in 6 months.
Well, one of them complained with us, they needed a representative for this group, I need to sign up, that's how I ended up here. It made sense for the project.
That's how Bob ended up here and Rodney ended up here. So the only thing I wanted to add on here, Barry, is kind of a comment about when they next schedule, you know, are they gonna come in 3 months, or are they gonna?
sometimes we don't know that until after we meet them.
Right, but we can put it on here, so presuming they're here, we ask the question and try to nail it down so that we know. Because if we don't think anything, like in Deb's case, if nothing's gonna happen, no point in asking her to come back in 3 months if they don't really have anything that they're gonna be able to tell us until after the state
Yeah.
makes a decision in June, that's all.
The other part of my administrative report I wanted to mention is 810 Washington Street. That's not going forward. I never received a full application.
Oh, the Norfolk County.
No. Yes, yes.
The Norfolk County, the old Norfolk County Bank. But
Yes, the bank on, yes, the bank on the corner, yes. Why doesn't, so I didn't have to unmute you, I muted you because I was getting some feedback.
In the meantime, the historical commission approved, that, application for 810 Washington Street as a historic structure.
Yeah.
We didn't affirm what the amount would be, but we did affirm it as a historic structure and basically okayed whatever CPC wanted.
Great,
Good, good.
I don't know why we didn't get an application or I haven't heard from the applicant, but I didn't and so, it was,
you seemed very disoriented at the last meeting.
yeah,
I'm not surprised.
yeah, I really don't think he was ready, so.
I don't think, the feedback you got from us was very satisfactory.
To him, maybe not,
Maybe he just figured it wasn't worth pursuing.
Yeah,
maybe, but that's the process. And I think we did what we could do, we talked.
should we have some official, to your point about these reports, should we have some official, questions that may go out to people who we've made awards to, just for example, the $1,000 to MBTA, so that we have a written response coming back?
Well, I mean, that's the intent on this update. I guess the question there, we get a little bit more information when we get Biz to start giving us copies of the invoices. In this particular case, my intent is to follow up and get that copy, at least of that invoice, but use this as a prompt to say, okay, we need to start seeing these invoices now.
Well, we may come up with more questions.
And as we have questions, then yes, we can certainly make sure we document questions back and forth. In this case, it's with the town and.
What about asking the vendor to CC the committee as well? So if I'm putting in a bill, for a fence, I include, and so we're aware of it at the time. Maybe it might not be paid, but I understand your point. Why do we pay $1,000 for something that, who authorized that and what was it for, So I don't know, I'm just thinking as a suggestion that, as you're going through new procedures, it may be best to say, look, if you're submitting for something, include us. So just we have a heads up. I don't know, let me just
Yeah,
throw it out
Might
there.
simplify it.
Yeah, no,
Somewhat.
that's a bad idea.
I've always been a little hesitant personally to get in the middle of the town's payable process. They have an accounting department.
Yep.
They get their direction from the approval of the project at town meeting. We're kind of looking over their shoulder, as we should be, because we have a responsibility. In this case, I don't know the answer yet, but presumably if Paul Jaffoon is running this project for the town manager and, the Board of Selectmen had come to us a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, asking us for that money. We approved the money, they become ultimately responsible for the paying of the bills, but we have every right to say, wait a second, we don't think that bill fits into what we agreed to. I don't know that we need to do that before they pay it.
Yeah.
And my real fear of having multiple copies of bills getting sent out is multiple copies of bills getting paid. Is we may add problems to what the town is doing. There have been very few instances, although we have not dug in, but we have dug in to projects in the past based on the total spending and said, hey, why did you spend that much money? And we got refunds and stuff. So I think let us keep that in mind. Let us start seeing those invoices and come up with an issue, a way to address questions at that point, rather than just off the report. Do we want to take a vote and approve this as the process, Barry, that we will use this form, or do we just want to do it?
I think we'll just do it
Okay,
administratively.
I'm thinking I'm okay if everybody.
Yep.
No, I think it'll help move things along.
Absolutely.
The next thing is, wording on the articles for a town meeting. Next page. Actually, this is not the latest version.
Yes,
as I said,
because we pulled out. But there's the.
You know, what I did was I put them on a separate document, so let me bring that up.
Yeah.
The ones that are going forward. Okay. So this is Article 23, they now have numbers.
Based on the draft, subject to change, because if they insert something, that could change everybody. Hopefully, they won't start changing numbers. I did get them, and Mark did it, to put our budget followed directly by the articles, in hopes that maybe they all end up at the same town meeting. There's no guarantees, because it depends on where town meeting breaks for the night. But in the past, we might have had the budget as Article 18, and the first actual article was 36, so it could be a week later, so. Or more, so I kinda like having that, he did it, but we'll see. So the first one will be the town hall pocket parks. This is what we're
It's pretty
proposing
straightforward,
as a motion.
boilerplate. There's no motion. That, I believe Mark Tisdale had said that he would create the motion in this one. I'll double check.
So,
So these are only articles, not motions.
okay, so do we wanna approve, do you wanna read that and then we
Sure.
approve it?
Article 23, Town Hall Pocket Parks, to see if the town will raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, a sum of money to fund the construction of a coordinated series of pocket parks on the grounds of Town Hall at 10 Pearl Street, such as map 54, parcel 221, or take any other action relevant thereto, estimated cost $820,000, and comes from the undesignated fund, 820 is what they asked for. They had an application in for 825, they changed it verbally, I had them resubmit the application as 820. We've already recommended the article be paid, question is the wording good?
Fine by me.
I guess, just broadly, that final phrase of always scared me.
Or take any other action relative thereto, yeah, it's pretty standard, and it's not just a Stoughton thing. I mean, I see that same wording on Falmouth's town meeting stuff, I've looked at theirs, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna take that money and set up a store with it or something, it's like, yeah, I know.
The dilemma is without it, you almost tie their hands in a way that causes problems. But it does kind of open up a little bit, right?
Well, we were trying to draw the line between what we would cover and what we wouldn't, and we went to some definition. And the other action there too, like things that have to do with the grading, the driveway and the retaining wall at the end, was that going to be within the 820, or was that separate? I just can't remember.
I believe the retaining wall is part of it.
Yeah, the 820 included the consolidation of the two driveways, I think was the way they put it.
I'd have to go back and look at the budget for that project.
Yeah, but the 820 is the number that's on the application. Because Barry had said there was a discrepancy of 820 versus 825, and we said, no, the application has to agree. We're not gonna go in this and be stumbling over numbers. I don't know,
It was being complicated in that we said we would cover various parts as we looked at it specifically, item after item. And I can't remember how this grading of the street fit into that, but I assume any other action relative there too, to address John's concern, was what we said we would cover.
Yeah,
So, if you would ask me right now what we said we would cover and what we wouldn't, I'd be hard pressed to remember that.
well, it's the same here, it's a complicated project.
well, yeah, it was like a 3-page budget listing it all out, but they can't do more than the 820.
And they did separate out which components were CPA related and which weren't. They had two separate columns. So, in fact, one of the things I had found originally in the CPA column was that they were going to repave the employee parking lot in the back. And I said, that's
not
not
CPC.
That's not CPA eligible. So they took it out. Oh, they moved it to the other column.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to just do these all at once.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay, so Article 24, Glen Echo Pavilion and Benches Project. To see if the town will raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, a sum of money to support the design, permitting, and construction of a new pavilion, permanent benches, fences, and other related equipment at Glen Echo Park, such as map 070, parcel 104, or take any other action relative thereto. The estimated cost is $180,000. It comes from the undesignated fund. We did approve it, and you can see my note that I added, subject to vote of Conservation Commission.
Sounds so simple and clear, huh?
Yeah.
That last line is not part of the, will not go into the book for town meeting. That's for our use.
No, but I think when we go and review these with finance committee and whatever other committee gets assigned, we will be stressing that if we don't have conservation, we're pulling this. That's, hopefully we'll have it before then.
So
We don't need to mention in here, Barry, the category at all?
You did, undesignated.
Well, no, that's the source of the fund.
Oh, it's recreation. Oh, I don't need to mention that it's recreation in the.
First, yeah,
This is open space.
That's why it's all, this is recreation.
Glen Echo Park.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The town hall was open space.
I thought it was.
Okay. And this week,
We just covered that,
we just covered this.
because we kinda had it both places.
We just approved it. Closeouts. So I'm gonna turn this over to Mike.
And again, I think we're just following the wording here, we kinda covered the projects. There's a list of the ones that Barry was further along in, this list will change. I don't know if we'll get all 12, but we'll try to. But to see if the town will vote to close the following articles and return funding to said accounts as listed below, or take any other action relative thereto.
I think that was a business word.
Yeah, I think that's the exact wording that was used at the special town meeting when Biz was closing out appropriations, not just for the CPC. But in this case, the key for us is the disposition column at the end. If it was relative to borrowing and we have funds available left over, it has to be applied back to the borrower. If it came out of one of the reserves, we can put it back to one of the
I think
reserves.
it's an option. I think we can do it either way.
Yeah, typically, I shouldn't say that. Typically, we put that back, although I think the way she put it, she didn't have a choice, but whatever. I'd rather, if there's borrowing money, I'd rather put it against it anyway, so.
I think the fire station may have been funded, if you want to hang on for a second.
I don't believe it was.
I think it was one of these that was bonded, just. check.
So once this is approved, we'll have an additional 121,141 available.
Correct.
When?
After, close of the year.
Close to the year, okay.
That money is in all of our reports as part of the undesignated fund. It's in our accounts.
Yeah.
So it looks like, it's just technically it's not available to be spent. Because it's still tied back to an appropriation. This is why when they went through it the last time, they went through and closed a whole bunch of appropriation to free up money that they could use. The money's always been there, they just couldn't spend it.
I'm just.
And in our case, we have a lot of money sitting in designated, so it hasn't caused us a problem, but there's no need to let the thing fling.
No, none of these are bonded, I understand.
Yeah, I didn't think any were one.
And the number at the bottom is just, again, for our use, there's a final invoice, which we believe is for the last transportation of the fire engine back to Stoughton.
Again, we're looking at this more for the wording on the article, because this list and those numbers will change between now and then.
So we don't have to vote on this now?
Unless you object to the wording.
We're only, any discussion we have is really about the wording of the article.
Yeah, actually, well, that's a good question. We have not approved Right, we have not approved this as an article to recommend to town meeting.
I thought we did, isn't that on?
No, we did not.
I move that we approve it.
Okay. Okay,
I'll second that.
okay.
Okay, we'll take a vote.
This is articles.
Yes. Bob?
Yes.
Rich? Dwight?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. All
Yeah,
right,
so we will cut this off sometime between now and probably before they're ready to print the warrant book and give them a final list. And the numbers will be different, the list will be different, but the wording is not gonna change.
Now we go to some actual closeouts themselves. What I'm looking for is a vote to actually, we are recommending to close out this particular project. This is the fire station.
This one, I must say, I have some questions about, we heard what a hellhole that was. What, I don't get how we have so much money on that.
They stopped spending at some point.
I think when they moved on to the new station, they started spending, and said, it's not gonna, why spend more money on this hellhole, let's focus on building a new station.
There hasn't
Remember,
been.
there were only certain things that we could spend our money on anyway, so it would have been a waste, but this has just been sitting there. I mean, that $98,000, I think, was spent back in 2019.
It's been a while since we've seen any invoices.
It was pretty much 2019 or 2020 all spent, and nothing has happened with the project since then.
Just the passion with which they came in here and presented.
So anyway, this is, we've tweaked this form a little bit from what we were using, but this is what Barry circulates, and he's got a bunch of them, I think, here. And we'll have this we'll have one of these for all the projects that are going to town meeting. So the other one just listed the projects, but our backup would include all of this. And in addition to this, every project pretty much has a list of the transactions, similar to what we've looked at the last couple months. So that if we said we spent $98,000, it'll show you how we spent $98,000. So, it's a good.
This one we only, because of the age, we don't have the breakdown of the individual invoices.
Right, this one was so old, I don't have transaction detail, and I said, you know what, I'll just put it in the munis report, and nobody can question where that went. Just close, tie the bow, dot the I, and cross the T,
I don't think Paul would have signed it if he had any question, or any use for the money at this point.
Sure.
So 210,
It's, the total budget was 210, 280, he spent 98,000 plus, so there's 111,000 left on change that we're, recommending to town meeting that this be closed out, which means that money will come back,
be freed up.
freed up for other projects. We saw that on the list.
It was in my list, I think it was
Yeah,
on
we did that,
your.
I just made the motion.
Yeah.
So this is just the official.
So we need a motion, motion to approve to close out.
Motion to close up the fire station.
Dwight, question?
oh, he's on mute.
You're muted. Hang on, Dwight. Barry's got to unmute you.
I'm okay with that, I think. So that the, part of this was going toward the historical museum part of the fire station, or is that a separate thing? It was going to be a historical part,
One day.
Yeah, the complication there is I don't think CPA historic funding, as strange as it sounds, can be used to create a museum.
As I recall, and I think this kind of happened towards the end of my tenure, and it may not have, they were gonna try to see how much CPA funds they could use on the historic building to create the museum. It might have been a little bit of a stretch, but whatever they were doing, they spent $98,000 that year and then haven't spent any money in 5 or 6 years, so we're just closing it up. If-
okay, and Paul signed off on it.
Yeah, Paul has signed this, yep. if in fact that were to come up and be eligible for CPA, it'll be a new project for us down the road. There's something they could figure out.
Well, like I said, because the CPA legislation under historic does not use the verb create.
Yeah.
It doesn't apply to historic, because I guess the thinking was, you can't create something historical, it's already gonna exist. Nobody thinking through, thinking that somebody might want to create a museum of things that already exist. But that being the case,
If you've got a historic building that you're preserving,
you can preserve a historic building and turn it into
and
a
so you can
museum.
spend money at that building that is going to be used.
Yeah,
But regardless, they spent $98,000 5 years ago, and we're just closing it
the
out.
project is
Yeah.
done.
It's done.
However you want to slice it.
Okay, any other questions? Take a vote. John?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
White?
Yes,
Bonme?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
The three of these, two of them are on the agenda, one of them came in too late on the agenda, but I was thinking that because it's purely housekeeping, they're not pro and con necessarily, we can decide.
Yeah, no.
West Street Barn, this is the evaluation part, $5,500 was spent on the report that told us how much we would have to spend to renovate the barn. So that can be closed out.
So do we have
$2,000.
a motion?
I move that we close it out.
We have a second. Do we have any discussion? We'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich? White?
Yes,
Bonme?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Okay. Now, the next one that I have, and yeah, of course.
Dan signed off.
So this, he did a good job of efficiently spending almost all of the money that had been granted from us, only $212.99 left. So the project is finished, the last piece was putting up a fence, which was just installed. It's already been paid for by the town, so.
I move we approve it.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
White?
Yes,
Bonme?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. You can see in a case like this that some of the transactions I'm able to extract directly from Munis. And actually, the bottom ones were the 2025 stuff that just showed up the other day. And they're in a different format, so I couldn't kind of merge them into that same thing, but I just added them on the bottom and said, here's a list, this is what they are. You know, the nursery, the fence, and the, I don't know what the festival is. Gives us a rundown of what we spent.
The next thing is minutes. This is trying to catch up. I did one more month of minutes since the last meeting. This is from October 15th.
Any discussion? Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? Any questions, concerns, comments?
You will once you retire.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion, so
And a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Bob. We'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
yes.
White?
yes,
Bonme? Bonme, are you there? Nope, I think we lost you. The chair votes yes.
Okay, so it's a 5-0. Nobody else can leave, so now we're down to we're almost done now.
We are almost done. Couple quick
The
things.
next thing is Michael and I put together a calendar for next year, given how, and you saw tonight, everything being squeezed in at the last minute on the two Glen Echo projects. And we really need to avoid that. I mean, The other thing we want to do, and this is Michael's idea, and I think it's a great idea, is to move up our annual public hearing. Not have it be in November, after our deadlines have already passed, but rather have it be in summer, where people can come and submit projects. I think that's a great idea.
Well, the other thing, and again, I follow a lot of what's going on in the town of Falmouth, because they spend a lot of time down there as well. They were very active and very productive CPC, so I kind of looked at, got this calendar from them and said, how do we kind of work in the same process? They do it with 2 annual they have an annual and a special every year. They schedule to, a fall and a spring. But literally, starting with tonight, and I kind of mapped out first Wednesday of the month, we changed a couple because of holidays or whatever that didn't fit. And these can change, but this is just a calendar, gives an idea of what we're gonna do, with some ideas of what's gonna take place in some of the meetings. So tonight's meeting, we really should be taking final votes for anything going to ATM in May, which is what we were doing. We should be reviewing, the calendar for the coming year, looking at the ATM articles that we just went at by next week. And this stuff can move back and forth between meetings, but review and finalize all that stuff and have an approved calendar for the year. I'd like to see us start working out the draft grant agreements with the applicants before the meeting. I mean, town meeting probably should be able to see what special conditions are gonna exist on these grant agreements before they approve them. There's no reason, and also, we then don't have to spend 3 or 4 months after the fact trying to get started on a project, because you can't start without it. So I would like our focus to turn, and this year may be good because we don't have that many projects, to swing that. I put a couple of deadlines in, publish a notice that we're gonna hold a public hearing in June. A public hearing should be focused on assessing the needs of the community. There's a little bit of us maybe reporting what we've done for the year, but the whole intent of the public hearing is to get community input and get some excitement out. By having it earlier, we get to publish a notice of it, which might trigger someone to say, hey, I got some ideas about what you can do. And then later, when we actually put out a second notice asking for the application, the more times we hit the public with, hey, come to us, I think the more success we're gonna have in getting projects.
I didn't notice this before, but the legal notice requirement is in the bylaw, which we have to publish.
Yeah.
Twice. 1 week before the meeting, 2 weeks before the meeting. So we can
add that as a.
we can do an additional notice, which is not technically a legal notice, which frankly, nobody reads them anyway.
Right.
So in March, we can do not a legal notice, but, just a note, a request for proposals. And a notice of the meeting is coming up in.
Well, again, there is a request for proposals here in June, asking for them for, I think, August. But we can move these dates. This was just a proposal for us to look at, understand, come back next month and we'll decide what the actual dates on it should be. But I think it helps us picture what activity, and then when you get down to the bottom of it, literally, I think it rolls into next year and kind of repeats some of the same concepts of, okay, now we're gonna be talking about the following years. But I have June 30th, publish a request for proposals, deadline. I think the deadline we set was 8/15. So
Yeah,
that
we moved them up.
this is a lot earlier. I mean, I think we had a deadline this year of,
It was.
we have the
The
pre-application
was the
was
15th of
September.
September, and the full app was the 15th.
Yeah, and we want to get them a month or two early, then we have the presentation or interview with the applicants, and we flush it out in September and October. And make decisions in November and December, and finalize them in January. And I think we put this up on our website, we can publish the calendar as well as the public hearing type stuff. And we just say to people, we are not gonna back ourselves into the corner that we found ourselves into tonight, because that's frustrating and unproductive.
Ideally, this meeting shouldn't even involve the applicants, it should be us just finalizing our recommendations.
Good point.
It's gonna help us, I think, be much more productive.
This is nice. information.
So I think it just rolls over into the fall.
And then it rolls over in the next year and we start again. I mean, I think it'll be helpful.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to review, this is something new, a capital plan, which is something we've never had as a committee.
Coming out of the special town meeting, when there was a lot of give and take about the town's financial policies and yada, yada, yada. And I just happened to be looking at something and I saw the town had a capital plan, 4-year capital plan. Now, school isn't part of it, but they talked about that at town meeting, that they were gonna come together and produce a single meeting. But I thought, I'm gonna look, and I looked through it, and there's a CPC section with a note that we're waiting for information from the CPC. Like, funny, I've been the treasurer for the CPC for a long time, and nobody's ever asked me for a capital plan. So I asked Barry, he said, yeah, nobody's ever asked me either. I said, you know what? Let's not wait for them to ask us. So, straightforward, in fact, I went to a 5-year because I saw that they wanted a 5-year, but last year they only did a 4-year. And again, this is the 15 projects that you saw in my treasury report, is the start. Because we know they're out there, we know we haven't spent all the money. I can start moving around. For example, we talked to Hebrew Senior Life, I had them being spent by the end of fiscal 25, the first payment of $868,000 in the middle of the page. And we just got confirmation from them, that's probably really in fiscal 26. So I can move that money over, that's easy. But I took, the Hanson School Playground. Said, okay, there's $950,000. Maybe between now and June, they spent $300, maybe $650. I'm arbitrarily making some cuts.
Okay.
I mean, as we get more active with these people and get them in on a regular basis, we'll have a much better handle on this. But it just I tended to split the money out over 2 years for the projects. And so I built the plan for 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Right? And then there's just some totals over there. And again, the top half there is all the stuff we know about. You get down to the bottom, I added in the project for the Glen Echo Pavilion, which I assume will all get spent in fiscal 26. And my goal would be for us to help move that project along so it doesn't take 2 years to get it done. The Pocket Park, I'm guessing they aren't gonna get it all done in 1 year, so I put 500 and 320. Arbitrary numbers, and I'm willing to take any input. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if one comes out a little bit more 1 year and the next year and stuff. This kind of gives us a flow all the way up. Then I got a line at the bottom that says, other future projects. And there are some numbers there, and to me, that's our capital plan. And you can see it says we're gonna spend $10 million. Kind of kept it so that if we collect $1 million a year in my thought process, we collect $1 million in surcharge, a couple $100,000 from the state. We should be spending money, I don't say equal to, but we should be spending money commensurate with how much we're collecting from the taxpayers. Or else we shouldn't be collecting it. And there's no borrowing or anything in here yet, we're not in a position we need to worry about. At some point, and you put that all in here. So the next page is kind of a backup for us.
It's a detail of the last line.
Is the detail that makes up that last line. And just Barry and I talked through and said, okay, there are some things out here that, projects that have been thrown out, and I don't want to surprise you on this flight, but I said, Lucius Flat. And I think in the Collins report, it said it's gonna take $1 million to make that ADA accessible. I don't know if that's a project you'd be interested in doing, but I had to do something to come up with numbers here, so. We just we put out A10 Washington, the Glen Echo Jetty, and some others. But then even to continue it out as far as I had to put TBDs in for the future years, and again, split the money over a couple of years. Just to come up some ballpark that gives us some idea, we have a target of what we expect. I think we'd all be happy if a major project that was great for the town came in and we got it done sooner than what's in here, but that's okay. This is just this year's capital plan. So I'll throw it back to questions and Dwight's.
If you recall, we paid for the study, to make the Lucius Flat handicap accessible, which is where I think they came up with a $600,000 number, and then we didn't okay it, whatever year it was, but that, I think it should be handicap accessible, and the question is, just to throw it out there, is coming up with, or how much of the previous study did we pay quite a bit of money for, and it recommended certain things, which we didn't do. The question is then to go into that project again, how much of that study that was in the recommendations that were made then can just be used to go right to the article, but I just throw that out there, it was done on my mind.
Well, again, what I'm showing here would suggest that that would be a project that we can work on, come up with some real numbers, and present to town meeting in May of 2027. If we think it's something we could do sooner than that, that could easily move up a year and say, yeah, why don't we target getting a real project plan together again? We now have the Collins report, I think. We've got a lot more emphasis coming into town about doing this kind of stuff. And this could be our list of targeted type stuff that we want to work on.
Yeah, we need to revisit that report that we paid for that was given to us, where they made the recommendation of X, Y, and Z, to go back to that and see how much of that we can use as is. The cost will be different, but the concept of what they wanted to do will probably be the same.
Yeah, and cost can go up and down. It's all.
Yeah, I only
Well,
consider
the scope
that,
went
that's
down,
a
the
nice
cost
thought.
went down, yeah, it's,
Right, have you seen the Collins report? Because they did analyze the building for ADA compliance.
and I think they said it'd
I
take $1 million.
yes,
I'm sorry, say that again?
yes, what,
For the Lucius Clap, they did analyze the building for ADA compliance. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
yeah, well, I heard they did, and I just know the 600,000 is what it was gonna cost us last time around.
Yep.
With the plan, there's more than one option, but the option that they decided on that, elevator outside the building with bathroom, was in the ballpark of 600,000 3 years ago.
Let me suggest to you that the fact that that page says 600,000 in each of the years is pure coincidence. I had the $1 million number from the Collins report, said if I'm going out a couple more years, it's probably gonna be more. I said $1.2 million and I split it over 2 years. There's nothing to back up that number. Kind of coincidental that it hit something
It
you
looks
already
like a
have.
ballpark reasonable figure to me.
But this is something that we can begin and get that direction. And, you know, I'll throw another one, but the Cape Mills house, is there something we should do there? Now, we have community gardens.
I already got plans.
We got the dog park, we can add that in here, let's talk about where it belongs, is it something we could get done for 26? I mean, certainly it could replace something that's there, or it could get added to it. The good news is we have that money. Just, again, focus on us a couple years down the road. And that's why we gotta get a little more efficient on the stuff we're doing for Maytown meeting. So that was all. I mean, we put it in there, we wanted to give it a chance to digest it and start thinking. And I think in conjunction with the calendar, these things are gonna help us move forward. If we're comfortable with this, when Barry and I meet with Biz, I was also gonna give it to them and say, here, go ahead, add this into the town's capital plan. The board's reviewed it, it's a capital plan.
It's not a budget, it's a plan.
It's a plan. But this calendar is a great marketing tool to get the excitement that you see in Falmouth. It's so,
Falmouth has the advantage too, it's a weekly newspaper, the Falmouth Enterprise, and I'm amazed how often they read in their articles about the CPC and what they're doing, and it's like, it would be great to have that, and then they have a lot more money in their CPC. Which helps, so yeah, no, it's all geared towards doing that. I mean, I'm excited when I think about what we can do, we have the money to do it, let's just, as people learn things like this dog park, like Glen Echo, I mean, slowly but surely, people get up and say, wow, what a beautiful spot. That's part of the reason my consternation a little bit with the Conservation Committee, potentially slowing us down from doing the pavilion. It's like, they should be a no-brainer. It's a beautiful spot. Putting up a pavilion there, and it's just, and I hate to put it off a whole year just because we didn't get it in time. And that's why I want to focus on us too.
the water issue.
No, the pavilion, I was afraid that would.
Oh, yeah.
We talked with Eric about that pavilion when we thought we had the extra $76,000 from the park grant, until we learned that we really couldn't spend that money without putting in another project for it. So we've been talking about it for a year. I mean, that should have been done, buttoned up and ready and gone through conservation before it came to us. And we gotta help Eric. I mean, Eric's got a committee. I think he's doing 90% of the work, from what I can see.
I did talk with, the former principal of Gibbs, I can't remember her name. She's on that committee, she was at my house to self-build. And she said that they had a meeting discussing that. So the committee isn't just, the committee is meeting, I don't know, roughly or otherwise.
They had one,
Huh?
That's in December.
I think for a long time they did.
Well, that was prior to the
Yeah.
17th.
But that committee has to work out what they want, and then go to conservation, get their okay, and then come to us. You don't start in December
Right.
trying to get it done for me. And we can help them better understand. In fact, I think our calendar will help them understand it. Yeah, in December, you're talking a year and a half town meeting. And if you do all the work and there's a special town meeting, we can put it in there if that people want to do.
I think Falmouth has an even longer lead time in that.
Theirs is even longer than what
Well, two things, this calendar plus the revised schedule that we discussed, moving things a little earlier.
Yeah.
Well, people in the butt to get it done.
That's the intent.
The deadline is a deadline.
And we make the deadline so that we're not sitting here. Yeah, we all want to get something done sooner rather than later. We all hate the idea of losing a whole year because of a deadline, but realistically, all the time we spend doing that, we aren't looking ahead at these other projects, getting them right. So we're just never gonna get out of that cycle if we don't change what we're doing.
Yeah, then George, former principal.
All right, well, I think we're at item 17, any other new business or emergency?
I know of none. Any others? Anyone?
Okay. Next meeting will be the first Wednesday in February, which is the 5th. And we'll have a whole cast of characters talking about all the projects that were approved at last year's town meeting. And what their updates are.
Yeah, we got a bunch coming in.
We got a bunch coming.
And we'll get them all out that form, which I think, if they filled it out and sent it in and we don't see a whole lot of questions, then maybe they don't have to come in, but I think it's gonna help them, because they don't know what to expect coming in, so they're kinda all over the place telling, it's like, no, here, folk, what did you do, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, we have an obligation to guide them. 'Cause
And I think that's what we're trying to do here. So with that, the favorite motion,
Motion to adjourn?
do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, John,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Dwight,
Yes.
on me,
Yes.
be back in, and the chair votes
Yeah, I
yes.
thought you'd have that.
She's been back in for a while.
Thank you, folks.
Good night.
Adjourned. Thank you, folks.